Aguilar, he's gone up, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin! Oh,
and
no!
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lawler does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean, and they're coming to the right hand, and this is it. Chris Lawler seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lawler takes it.
Yeah.
Right there, Vic Miranda, Pedro Zuma into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers, coming up to the cutting.
David Todd making his way back up, has already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, I spoke too soon there. Sandy goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Todd passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Todd right now going into the pit lane. Another beautiful day as we're headed back out into the USA. That's right, folks. We are back in Connecticut at Lime Rock Park, out here for AMX Zero. Everyone, welcome back to Season 6 of the AMX Sim Racing World Championship, where it's going to be a good one today. First starting off with AMX Zero, and later on going to AMX 5. But of course, AMX Zero, free to join, open to anyone. I know it's going to be a great one today. I'm Kevin, and alongside me today in the booth, I'm joined with Amir. Amir, it's always a great time out here for AMX Zero, getting to see not only just what the pros can do in some of these entry-level cars, but also a lot of the newcomers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we can pick up some of these guys that are relatively new to iRacing, or they're making their name somewhere else, but now we get to see them to the fore here today, and I'm quite pleased to see that quite a few names are familiar, but new names for us to enjoy today, Kevin.
Absolutely, and for everyone out there watching at home, make sure to follow all of our social media. That'll pop up from time to time. We post the best of the highlights, replays. Sometimes we have giveaways, which that's definitely one thing I know we have a lot of people wanting to tune into, as well as live on Twitch and YouTube every single weekend. But before we get into today's races, we're going to go over our format of today's race. So we have a few different formats out here, like we mentioned already, starting off today with AMX Zero. We've been out here since September 7th, and we're going all the way through November 17th with this season's prize pool of $11,000 in next level racing gear. The race format goes as follows for our AMX Zero races. We have a 15-minute qualifier followed by that top 15 reverse grid going to a 20-minute heat number 1, followed by another top 15 reverse grid going into that final second heat. For all of our drivers out there, driver cams are required. You can get the link via our AMX Discord or on the website. Payouts are done. Balances of $100 every single month. So once you hit that $100 threshold, that money's headed your way. And like I mentioned, we are here every single Saturday and Sunday. You can get signed up anytime to race over at amxrace.com. We're here Saturdays with AMX Zero and AMX5 starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by AMX5 shortly after at 7:10. On Sundays, we have AMX 10 this season with a doubleheader starting at 5:50 p.m., followed by the second race at 7:30 p.m. And on every other week, we have our AMX 15 mini enduro races starting at 5:50 p.m. So for the AMX Zero, the prize pool goes as follows. For first place, you get $5. Second gets $4. Third gets $3, and all the way down into 15th place. And during heats number 1 and 2, it's going to be the same scoring, but the fastest lap getting an extra $1 with a total prize pool per race of $73. And like we mentioned already, Formula V, one of the best entry-level junior racing series out there.
Yep, certainly, Kevin. And the fact that it is paired up with a great circuit like Lime Rock Park, located in Lakeville, Connecticut, as you said before. This circuit has been run for more than about half a century. It was first opened all the way back in 1956. So it's really an old school track, but with quite a new school feel, with certain areas being revamped for the modern day. Open 1957, 2.4 kilometers in length. And we're actually using, I think, the full layout, which is the Grand Prix circuit. So the Formula V cars can actually stretch their legs a bit on the Sam Posey straight, but in the twistier sections, we're definitely going to see side-by-side action, including this chicane here, which we might see a few people come across with. And to pair up with the track that we have today, it's the Formula V, or in other words, to give its full name, the Formula Volkswagen, because it is a Volkswagen Beetle engine that they put initially in the original cars, but nowadays it's a modern day 2-liter engine, 75 brake horsepower, rear wheel drive, very light, just half a ton, and for the old school vibe, a H-pattern manual gearbox. So this car may be a bit crude in some areas, but make no mistake, racing with these things have proven to be quite a blast, especially in previous seasons where we've seen some close action, and in certain cases we might see some wheels interlocking that might send the cars into the air. So knock on wood, we're probably not going to see that today, but judging by how the cars can get there easily, we might just see some flips here, Kevin.
I know it's always going to be a little bit of chaos whenever you throw some of these drivers that are used to these high horsepower, high downforce vehicles, throwing them back into the junior series. But now as we head back into qualifying, let's see where our drivers are. Looks like we have quite a few drivers out on the field today. Ralph Benitez, the number 43. Of course, we're seeing him out here with the Team Delita Esports. A lot of other series these drivers racing in, so it's always great to see him put them back to the basics. And of course, we see him go up now that we hit the West Bend. Today we're running the full Grand Prix layout of the, well, I would say the full layout, because I mean technically there's multiple layouts out here, but today we're running the Grand Prix layout, which has through turns 5 and 6 the chicane, and goes the West Bend the full course around. So we don't have the West Bend chicanes out here today, but now as we can see a lap on board, Ralph Benitez improving his lap time, so doing a great job. We're only about 7 minutes into this qualifying session, so still plenty of time for these drivers to get up onto the top of the top of the qualifying. Man, I can't even talk English today, but Ralph Benitez is doing a great job of that so far.
Yeah, certainly. And remember, we do flip the script there, so anybody who sets a time in, we're going to flip them up from, in this case, 12th to 1st. So it's going to be quite tough to overtake around here, particularly when you only have just one or two braking zones. Oh, there's a car, literally engine gone kaput. And hopefully that car is out of the way soon. I'm not sure whose car is that. It looks as though it might have been Alec Brown, I think, because he was on the out lap. So is Villarreal and Kulhavi, but he has not set a time yet. So if he doesn't, he might just have to be setting on the back as Benitez goes grass tracking. Well, welcome to the lower formulas, isn't it? All the chaos happens.
Now out here too, so these cars aren't on slicks either. They have grooved tires, so that just makes it that much harder for these to really put down all of the power, though. Everything here is relying 100% on mechanical grip, so these guys don't really have any wings, any splitters, nothing to help them out. It's just on the tires, and look at all that smoke coming from these vehicles. So you can already see these drivers definitely trying to push it to the absolute limit. Right now we're on board Bruno De Carmo. Looks like he's currently in third in the timing screen. Speaking of the timing, the QR code will pop up on screen on the right hand side. For all of you watching live at home, you can go ahead and scan that QR code and get the full live timing. Go ahead and see what we're seeing up here in the booth. But back to what's going on track. Definitely, it's great to see a lot of these guys. I know right now there's a lot of pro seasons going on in iRacing. I'm already seeing about 3 pro drivers out there. So that's the likes of Victor Miranda, Ralph Benitez, as well as Jackson Asenge. So 3 Brazilians. We have quite a grid of Brazilian drivers out here today, as well as I'm seeing Tim State from the U.S. out here on his home field. We have Gerard Sardeni from Spain. We have Alec Brown. So quite a few folks out here kind of representing their countries. It's great to see the diversity out here today.
Yeah, including one brand new guy, I think, or he might have actually played in previous seasons, so we might need to have confirmation of that. Francesco Biasiotto from Costa Rica. So that's quite a diverse amount of drivers on the grid. Predominantly Portuguese and Spanish-speaking drivers here as well. So that would be quite interesting to hear the drivers' discussions among themselves if anything were to come amiss. But hopefully we're not going to get any of today. We just want to get some good racing. Oof. Someone actually spun it around coming through the chicane, so that's a point of contention that somebody might really make use of if they could actually get advantage of that. Meanwhile, drivers further up in front, you can see Villarreal improving from 10th, 11th, all the way to 2nd. So he's got the baby in his teeth from the get-go.
And I'm looking out there, so yeah, the lack of European representation. We only have a couple European drivers out here today. Like, I know a few of the drivers might be just getting ready, trying to focus on AMX5 later on today. But I know a lot of, like I said, a lot of pro series going on right now. I know as well the Porsche Esports Super Cup going on is a really big one out in the iRacing community. So I'm sure there's drivers out there tending to their professional duties. So it's great to see that we still have some pro drivers in here. And being out on the track in AMX Zero myself, I can tell you, it can be intimidating at times to be up against some of these pro drivers, but at the same time, it's great to be able to go back, watch the replays, kind of learn what you can from these guys, just see how they're racing out here on the track, and really just try to do what you can to kind of replicate that. So it's great to, although it can be intimidating, it's still great to be alongside these guys as well.
The term watch and learn is really going to be applicable here, as speaking of learning, somebody learned to just try to control the car as going on the grass there, following Gerard Sardini. Not sure who's that one. We're going to get quite a few identifications wrong here because we're just getting to know the drivers in some liveries in their cars, while some are running the base colors that are provided in iRacing. But either way, looking at the times right now, Bruno De Carmo, a gloveless and flicked head Bruno De Carmo, goes into the fastest of all in qualifying by about a tenth of a second, just under a tenth of a second from Victor Miranda, making a Brazilian 1-2, Villarreal in 3rd. Resendi we're watching right now in 4th, but he's got company in front. That might help on the straights if he could actually use the slipstream, but it looks as though through the corners, it might just be a bit of a nuisance if he catches up to the back of that other driver.
And here we can see, still on board with one of the pro drivers, Jackson Asenge. So one of the many drivers that we get to see out here in AMX from the Delinte Esports team. Of course, I think we say this nearly every time. Delinte Esports, known most famously because that is Tony Kanan's esports team. A lot of great things coming from them out there in Brazil. We've seen a lot of drivers this year as well getting shifted around to different esports teams. So it's still great in between all of the chaos, have these guys still out here week in and week out, driving out on AMX Zero. you know, at the end of the day, I think really everyone's just out here to have a good time, and a good time we can see all smiles from a lot of these drivers. Right now, we have what used to be, we used to call him our resident VR driver. Tim State has since dropped the VR headset, now looking like he's on those triple screen monitors. So great to have him out here. Of course, another person that has been with AMX for a long time. Great to see Tim back out here today.
Wow, certainly, and it's quite a change, isn't it? Now we can see him fully focused while driving. And I think by the looks of it, that particular triple doesn't have a bezel kit, so he prefers to just make the FOV the way he likes it. And it looks as though it's almost like a surround TV setup, but make no mistake, if you get the FOV right in triples, it really does feel correct. Though that particular time, Tim just overcooked it coming to the chicane and has to abandon that lap.
And just like that, on this track, once you hit into the chicane, you do not want to be hitting those curbs. Those curbs will pretty much throw you into the air. So we might get some acrobatics going out here on track today, just depending where these drivers get a little bit dicey. That's definitely one of these places. It's a little bit harder to pass on this track. I mean, really outside of the Sam Posey straight, going into turn number 1, that's probably going to be the biggest passing opportunities. Outside of that, a lot of it's going to come down to these drivers just trying not to make any mistakes. But like we said, with very low downforce in these cars, once they start really pushing it, they're definitely going to be a lot more off track, as we see another vehicle right there sitting off track. Now, looking to see a lot of these drivers, we only have about 3 minutes left out here in qualifying. So, like I said, normally about 15 minutes qualifying out here, a couple minutes tacked on. But, ooh, as we just see right into the curb, a lot of carnage. I expect there to be quite a few incidents through that chicane, Amir.
Well, I think the first lap is going to be the prime example of that one, isn't it? As Francesco Biasiotto went through there, he just jumped the curve a bit while trying to avoid the other drivers around him. As meanwhile, up on the timing sheets, Miguel Araujo has actually gotten up in front with a rather questionable livery on the side. I'm not sure if that's meant to be a driver sitting or is that something else. We're not going to elaborate further, as Miranda goes into pole position, fastest by about 500ths of a second. And I was about to mention just now, the guy behind Araujo was Gaston Colhavi with the pencil livery once again. So hopefully he's gotten his senses sharpened for this particular track.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see. Like I said, this track definitely one of the first tracks that you're going to be learning in iRacing, and probably one of the first cars. I know now, of course, the Formula Ford 1600s have kind of taken over that spot for getting into the Formula route out here in iRacing. So we'll have to see. Like I said, the Formula V was the one a lot of drivers really started getting into, as well as the MX5s. We've seen both out here. Seen out there in chat too. What's up, guys? Big shout out to everyone on chat. I've seen them out there on Twitch and YouTube, both of them as well. So it's great. See all these guys. Hey, but chat, I'm going to call you out right now. We love seeing you out in the comments, but we'd love to see you out here on track just as much.
Yeah, certainly, as a few people behind the scenes are going through Sweet Trip Drift God as on the Twitch chat. You can see the notification come out on the right hand side of the screen, while at the bottom ticker you can sometimes see the chat from YouTube and Twitch coming together. The likes of Nika Boobet, Just Keith, and Site 815 have actually come on board. So we got plenty of activity there, and they'll probably keep us entertained too throughout the entire proceedings. But for the time being, though, qualifying is about to come to an end. 1 minute left to go, and it looks as though Miranda's time is enough to get him the fastest time in quali.
So definitely, so Victor Miranda, of course. Like we said, I mean, not really a big surprise out there when you have some pro drivers out in the class, but one thing that's still great to see, we have, of course, Diego Villarreal now sitting in 4th position. So Diego Villarreal, one of the drivers, still under 4,000 iRating out here today, but showing that his time spent in the Formula V out in the official races is absolutely paying off out here today.
Yeah, certainly. And it's a vast difference, isn't it, compared to the Formula 4s. They're surprisingly way faster despite being about the same type. But again, the Formula 4 cars having slicks really does make a difference compared to the semi-slick shod old school Formula V cars. But nonetheless, it's still quite a great car to learn the basics of how to get to used to single-seaters, as qualifying now comes to an end.
So with that, our 17-minute qualifying session today. Coming to an end now. Definitely a lot of drivers in the middle of the field. We'll have to see as things get shaken up a bit out here. Of course, AMX Zero open for anyone to join. So if you're watching this live, watching this back on YouTube later on, feel free to head over to amxrace.com. We'll be here all season long. Like I said, we got 10 weeks of some great racing. AMX Zero every single Saturday going on. So I'm hoping to get myself involved in at least one race if I'm not up here in the booth. So definitely go out there, check the schedule as well. We got a lot of great races going on. But for right now, we got your BenQ session winner, Victor Miranda, setting a lap time of 1:03.744. And to get in under 1 minute 4 seconds just shows how great these drivers are out here today. In second place, we got Miguel Araujo. Third place, Bruno De Carmo. Fourth place, Diego Villarreal. Fifth, Gaston Culavi. Sixth place, Jackson Asenge. Seventh, Ralph Benitez. Eighth, Tim State. Ninth, Evandro Dantas. 10th place, Francesco Biasiotto. 11th, Gerard Sedani. And in 12th, we got Alec Brown, who unfortunately couldn't get a time down in qualifying. So he's going to be starting on pole position. Hopefully he's able to get a clean lap in going in. Like you said, Amir, lap 1 can always be a bit chaotic for everyone out there.
Oh, certainly, Kevin, especially on a track like this where the first thing you see is the road, yes, but then when you go off, it's the grass and you're going to go forever. We're going to get underway for Heat 1.
And just like that, the drivers are off. So a quick grid and start. The drivers, Alec Brown still leading it, but now we go 3 wide. We're coming into turn number 1, and our first incident right off into turn number 1. The cars are flying, somersaulting, absolutely crazy chaos. A lot of tire smoke, a lot of smoke in general going off, but that leaves room for Francesco Biasiotto to lead the pack away. And just on these cold tires as well, a lot of tires locking up already. So we'll have to see immediate turn 1 incidents, Amir. We knew it was going to be chaos. I didn't think it would be that soon.
Well, I think I kind of expected it because, again, you can get 3 to 4 cars even in that main straight, the Samposi straight into turn number 1. You're bound to get something go wrong if somebody misjudges it, and it looks as though quite a few drivers have gone into the pits, including Jackson Usende. But Alec Brown, who actually was starting right at the back over there, I think, has gotten through it safely, albeit right at the back. Cole Harvey was also one of those guys in that pencil livery car. He was actually flung into the grass, but apart from that, I think the rest of the field are still driving here, Kevin.
Yeah, it looks like Jackson Sanjay did get the worst of that, had to hit the pits immediately, get the tow truck out there. But now we're heading into lap number 2, and it's still Biasiotto leading in first with Ralph Benitez right on his tail, followed by Bruno De Carmo and Evandro Dantas as well. So really tight battle up front for the lead. We'll have to see as these guys doing a great job of defending from Biasiotto. So you got to see out there the Puerto Rican driver showing that he came out here, is not messing around out in heat number 1. But like we said, with some of these pro drivers right on his tail, will he be able to hold on to that lead? We only have 19 laps going out here, so a little bit short as we go into the chicane section, heading uphill. Definitely great to see these guys getting lined up right now. That's one place you also do not want to be getting side by side with another vehicle.
Oh, certainly. Again, I did mention just now the grass being the one that you do not want to touch here, because especially turn number 1, once you go off forever. So you really want to avoid that. And around the outside here as well, coming through the final corner onto the start finish straight, wouldn't want to do that either. If that guy on your inside gets it completely wrong, you're going to interlock wheels. As Biasiotto, the Costa Rican, is under severe pressure here. It looks as though he's not going to defend too much. He's just going to let Benitez, De Carmo, and Dantas just have their way with him, while he's just trying to mind his own business here and keeping his car clean.
And I'm looking in chat also, we have Fabio De Carmo out there. So that is the brother of Bruno De Carmo out here cheering his brother on. So a lot of family affairs out here in AMX as well. I know one that's most notably known is the Dean brothers. We see them racing out on track, so it'd be great to have the De Carmo brothers as well. But here's just a picture-in-picture replay of the race start incident. Oh man, you see 2 simultaneous incidents kind of going on right there at the same time. So like we said, that's what happens though whenever you try to go 3 wide into turn 1. Someone is bound to just get taken out or take out themselves going to the grass. Either way, a lot of smoke, a lot of people. And now Jackson Asenge still sitting in the pits from that first lap incident.
Yeah, I think the car is well and truly terminally damaged, because I think it was one of those red cars. That's Jackson going up into the air, completely breaking the suspension when he was on his way back to terra firma. But we're not going to mind too much about that. We're looking at the battle for first here. De Carmo, Benitez, Biasiotto, and Dantas watching brief here. Coming up to turn number 1, De Carmo manages to just hold on to the lead, but Biasiotto is back into P2, so he's not hanging about. He wants to get into the thick of things and possibly trying to get his first ever win in AMX.
So it's great to see what these drivers are doing. Like we said, we knew it was going to be a crazy one out here today every single time we put them out here, but especially in an open wheeler. You throw some of these guys in an open wheeler, all it takes is the littlest of contact, and we got to see that even in real life, of course, last weekend. Definitely in Formula One, just how much the littlest bit of contact can cause such a big accident. So that is the same out here in iRacing in the sim. And ooh, looking from there, Biasiotto's having a bit of trouble right there. I'm not sure if he's having a bit of engine trouble or what's going on. I've seen some smoke kind of coming out of there as well, a little bit shaky. So we'll have to keep an eye on him, as now he's given up a lot of positions there, Amir.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's on a manual, because if he just money shifted that thing, it might have been the reason why the engine blew. But it looks as though I think he might have just had a bit of a slide. And again, in terms of currency, we're talking about how important is it. It's almost the rags to riches type of argument. Your momentum. If you lose momentum in these kind of cars, that's it. Everybody's going to jump at you and you're going to lose a lot of money and time here, as we have one car stopping on the road. That looks like Alec Brown, and again, Alec was one of those guys that had troublesome qualifying. He had his engine blown, stopped there again. But going back to Biasiotto, I think that slight mistake of sliding with the way that he killed the momentum was enough for the other drivers to just jump on him, and losing a heap of ground to the front 3, which are all Brazilian, incidentally.
Yeah, right here, seeing we got a bit of Brazilian civil war going on for the top 3 positions. I mean, these guys have pretty much just pulled away from the rest of the pack, over 3.5 seconds now over Biasiotto. So Biasiotto was out in the fight earlier on. Now he has since dropped back quite a bit. So like we said, not sure if he's going to be having a bit of engine issues, or if he just, you know, made one mistake and now just the mentality of that to get back into it. Sometimes he's kind of slowing down, but his lap times are really slow. Is now Evandro Dantas just setting the fastest lap there. So now first driver in heat number 1 to be getting sub 1 minute 4 second laps. We'll see if he's able to get onto the top step. But like we said, he has 2 master class drivers right in front of him that he's going to have to get through first.
Yeah, but this is going to get a little bit dicey, isn't it? Coming out to the chicane, as Deepak Jib then watching on in the Twitch chat. He's also getting quite excited seeing here as Dantas is losing a bit of ground to De Carmo and Benitez. So it's going to be a fight between the 2 other Brazilians up in front here. Going to be the main focus, but that slide from Benitez might just allow De Carmo to come back at him, but De Carmo just tugs it back in the slipstream.
And now looking out there, I'm just laughing at chat as back to that, but right now Bruno De Carmo making the move on the Samposi straight, so making that move pretty early, trying to get in on there, and now he will take first place from Ralph Benitez. So Bruno De Carmo able to hold on to that lap 7 of 19. Bruno De Carmo so far up 9 positions from where he started on the grid, the most gained of anyone out here so far. So right now he definitely is just going to have to lock in, dial it back a little, and set the pace, make sure these other drivers can't get past him. But like we said early on, we expected most of the passes to be happening right off the Samposi straight out here in these cars, and Bruno De Carmo absolutely making that come true.
Certainly quite a few moves have also been done along that straight, and coming to turn number 1, it looks as though again one of the biggest heavy braking zones in this entire circuit is an overtaking point, and then we did mention that earlier. That's about the only place that you can get the move done if you're so inclined to try the chicane. But again, that almost always never comes to fruition because of how tight it is, and there's sausage curbs on the apex. Any way you look at it, you might just launch the car in the air. So your best bet is to use the slipstream, like what Benitez is doing, and try to send it on the inside coming into the first turn past the Samposi straight.
Definitely right there, and I'm looking at other people. Tim State moving up on the grid as well. Evandro Dantas. So Tim State now up into 4th place. We'll have to keep an eye on him, although there's a bit of a gap, as right now we are almost halfway through the race. We'll have to see how that middle of the pack changes up. I expect there to be some great battles going on throughout the rest of this heat as well. So we're going to have to keep an eye. Jackson Sanjay still holding on to the pit lane. Diego Villarreal now hitting the pits as well. So I think right now Jackson is just going to say, all right, we had that lap 1 incident. That was pretty much his race. He's just going to wait and focus on heat number 2, sit in the very back, and come back out on track in pole position for Heat 2. So that's a pretty great strategy, especially we know Jackson Sanjay, a great defender. So if he's sitting on pole position for Heat number 2, he's going to be put in one of the best positions that he could absolutely wish for.
Well, going back to the battle for P1 right now, the Carmo, his car, the graffiti on the front says, fancy for a punt. Well, I hope that's not foreshadowing, because he's doing the exact opposite of that. He comes through on the inside with a powerful slipstream. Now, will this be a sort of dress rehearsal to what we're going to see on the final lap? Who really wants to be in front when it comes to the punch here to win this race? Is Benitez going to hang back, or is the Carmo going to hang back? We're not going to really know for sure until the final lap plays out, as the replay of Karat Sardini looks as though, well, he just overcooked it coming to the chicane, and that's the reason why he's dropped more than 7 seconds behind Araujo. But apart from that, he's pretty much, well, it's not his no man's land. He's got Pujavi behind, but certainly not the best way to come up to the midpoint of this race, Kevin.
Yeah, seen a little bit of drifting going on into the chicanes from him, but now back to the leaders. We have Ralph Benitez. I mean, like you mentioned, Amir, I think it's really going to come down to who is going to be the person right behind coming into the final lap. I think that's really when, you know, it's going to be pretty much everything out on the line. Right now, these guys aren't defending too hard, so I think they're working together a little bit. They know once they start fighting, that's going to let that gap close from Evandro Danta. So I think it really will come down to those last two, maybe the last final lap, once the white flag comes out, these drivers to really start battling it out. But right now, we have a battle going on for 4th place. You have Biasiotto and Tim State. Tim State going a little bit wide out there into turn number 1 and turn number 2, trying to hold it back, reel back in Biasiotto. So a great battle going on so far. 4th place, we'll have to see Tim State doing an amazing job. He's still on the grid in 5th from where he started at the very beginning of this, was able to hop back up. Biasiotto fell back down pretty far earlier on, now trying to make up that pace, back up onto pole, well, not back up onto pole, but back up onto the podium.
Yeah, that'll be great for him, isn't it, to get back up there. Oh, State and Biasiotto really will fully commit to coming through there, as I think there's a puff of smoke that was shown at the top of the hill. That might have been Dantas having a bit of a moment there, but it looks as though he's managed to recover it. Now, theoretically, I'm saying theoretically in the nicest way possible here, State is still on for a technical podium if something were to happen to Biasiotto and Dantas in front of him. So he has to fight for everything that is worth. And he's looking at that slipstream right in front of him with Biasiotto punching the hole through the air. It's a big enough hole that he can slot in between that and dive back up in retaliation against Biasiotto. But Biasiotto, the young Costa Rican, holding it out on the outside and manages to stick into 4th place for the time being, though. But it looks as though this battle might just go all the way to the finish.
And moves like that, they can pay off big time. Sometimes they can be a little bit dangerous. So definitely we're going to see out here from some of these guys in the middle of the pack who is just going to hit the brakes later. So here we can see an incident from Victor Miranda. So Victor Miranda going in, and just like that, we were talking about earlier, hitting that curbing way too hard and just unsettling the car, sending him into a spin off track. Luckily, he did not take out any other drivers with that one.
Yep. It's just him being the only casualty, which is always a good thing, isn't it? Because you do not want to have multiple drivers involved. Otherwise, it will take the sting away of what could have been a better fight for the upper positions. Certainly, the Benitez and the Karma are doing just that, because they're coming to back markers right now. And it looks as though it might have been Alec Brown. Yep, Alec was one of those guys that became a back marker, a bit of a mobile chicane, but hopefully he stays disciplined and out of the way to not cause any drama. As we look at Biasiotto now, manages to just hold on to 4th place for the time being in front of State. So State didn't get the rub of the green in terms of slipstream to take 4th, but he knows the battle's still not over.
So here we go, the two drivers up front been swapping positions back and forth the entire heat. Right now we are lap number 12 of 19 out here in heat number 1. This is the, well, I can't believe we're already the 3rd week in out here. It's been some great races so far. Like we said, folks, make sure not to go anywhere, because after the AMX Zero race, we have AMX5 coming up. And ooh, a beautiful move right here. So like we said, well, I guess kind of over-exaggerated a bit, as they've been doing this all day long, but now it's looking like a little bit more of a gap than we've seen previously from Bruno De Carmo. So I think Ralph Benitez right now just kind of laying back, just really making sure as the gap between 2nd and 3rd place has now got up almost all the way to 6 seconds. So these two drivers up front just having a little fun with each other. They are kind of in no man's land by themselves.
Yep, and certainly they're smiling together right now. And if you're listening to Bruno DeCarmo stream, I think we can actually hear him talk right now. So Fabio said that we cannot hear them. Well, at least in some parts we can hear Bruno's particular stream if he's having a giggle, or he's having an absolute blast trying to actually just see if he could win this race by not having to slipstream past his fellow Brazilian every other lap. But it looks as though that's exactly what they're doing. They're actually, to their benefit, have increased the gap to the other Brazilian, Evandro Dantas, to about 6 seconds now. So really, the slipstream swapping of positions has paid dividends big time.
And looking out at the timing, so pretty much everyone else has spread out just a little bit, except Tim State is holding on pretty well to Biasiotto. So we might just have to check in with those two drivers as well, because like we said, although in the front the gap is pretty close, those guys are just kind of swapping back and forth, trying to get a gap between second and third. But here we go, Tim State now still trying to catch up to Biasiotto, about half a second behind him, as well as Biasiotto just about 2 seconds behind Evandro Dantas. So we'll see if these guys, they're not going to be fighting it too hard. Biasiotto might just catch right back up to Evandro Dantas and be battling for a podium position before the end of this race.
Oh wow, that will break some Brazilian hearts, isn't it? You thought that you might see a 1-2-3 once again, but the Costa Rican and American are coming by to actually try and take those positions away. And mind you, behind Tim State, Victor Miranda's not that far away either, so it could be a four-way fight for the final position on the podium. So Dantas now, what looked like a serene drive in Connecticut, might just need to pick up the pace here because he realizes that he's on the racetrack, not country roads.
Definitely. So it's great to be seen out here. We don't have very many people coming out here from Costa Rica and AMX, so it's absolutely great, like we said, to see all the different representation from the different countries out here. Of course, Tim State, the only one from the US of A out here on the American track, putting it down, still holding on to that 5th place position. Biasiotto, though, now has already increased that gap up to a second, while decreasing the gap between himself and Evandro Dantas in front of him. So we'll have to really see what these guys can do. Yeah, we've seen some people out there in chat just showing how much Tim State has improved. Of course, I've kind of been messing around a little bit, just getting back and forth between VR or with the screens. And I mean, each of them kind of have their benefit. I know one driver that we also see a lot, Tomas Simon, of course, another pro iRacing driver out here in AMX, some of the higher levels, some of the AMX endurance racing, is another person that is definitely keen to the VR. So like I said, it's not for everyone, but for the people that love to utilize it, definitely they utilize it well.
Yep, certainly. Hamas was one of those guys that really is always on the sharp end, where every time we see him in AMX, as we see, speaking of someone who's normally on the sharp end, Diego Valera is not having had a good start to the day here, not the first time we've seen it today, and certainly not the last to get caught out by the sausage curbs.
Man, so just like that, the curbs have taken another person out of this. Well, not entirely taking him out, but taking him off the track. So I think today, enemy number one so far on the track has been those sausage curbs going up into the chicane. So that just goes to show, though, how close these drivers are trying to get to hit the apexes through the chicanes. You can really carry a lot of speed or lose a lot of momentum if you don't take the right line through there. And now we can see the incident, of course, from Sardeni hitting that same left-hand curb and getting spun out. So we might have to get a counter on screen later on just to see how many people have been getting taken out by those curbs, Amir.
Yeah, but I might count 5 already. That's just vicious, isn't it? They look so innocuous, but once you hit them at the wrong angle, it's enough to send them in the end. But it looks as though it's the rear suspensions that are always getting caught up by this, because somehow it's a bit softer compared to the front, and that's what sends these cars a bit airborne. Not too high, but it's just enough to unsettle them and just spun them around. So Sardeni was, by my count, at least twice already that he's lost it. They're coming to chicane, but enough about that. We're going to go back to the battle to the front here. Benitez and DeCarmo looks as though the niceties have come off, as Alec Brown is the next to find out the harsh realities of these curbs.
So just like that, another victim taken out by the curbing. I can say I have hit that curbing my fair share of times too, so I'm not going to say it's easy. It's definitely one of those can sneak up right on you if you go into that a little bit hard, a little bit late on the brakes. And ooh, as we see that little bit of tire smoke right there too from Ralph Benitez. So Ralph Benitez making what may be his first mistake of the race, now leaving about a second gap between himself and Bruno De Carmo. So just like that, we've seen the two drivers swapping positions back and forth the entire time, but now as well as coming up on lap traffic, that is going to throw a wrench in things. So Bruno De Carmo, 2 laps left, may just be walking away with this, trying to push it these last couple of laps to really get ahead and not let up that final first place position.
Ooh.
So Amir, we'll have to see what these two guys are going to do.
Yeah, certainly, but it looks as though we're not going to count our chickens yet, because again, it looks as though De Carmo is actually just letting Benitez come by. So it's going back to that point that I said earlier. Who wants to be in front coming around the last lap? And it looks as though De Carmo doesn't want to be, or he might have actually cut the corner a bit. So that's why he's lost so much time here. In fact, almost well than 3 seconds that he's lost to give back to Benitez. Now he's going to have to do it, claw back in this final lap to get back up to the front, or this might be a bridge too far. Meanwhile, behind this particular battle, the battle for the podium positions might have actually gotten away from certain drivers. Biasiotto's into the pit lane, while Tim State's dropped to 5th. So he's actually... Oh, wait, no. What's happened here? They're all into the pit lane.
All right, so we're going to have to confirm with some people if perhaps these guys are running out of fuel. I mean, with everyone pitting on the final lap. So just like that, like we said, shaking things up like crazy. These are only 20-minute races out here, so you'd expect these drivers to have enough fuel. But with everyone pitting, we might just have to get, usually chat has come in clutch whenever it comes to times like this. I'll ask chat out there. Chat, what is going on with these drivers? Can you confirm if they in fact are running out of fuel? So that looks like so far that might be exactly what's happening, but that's left Tim State to be out here in first place. So will Tim State have enough fuel to make it through the final lap? He has nearly a 3-second gap over Bruno De Carmo. So Amir, this might be Tim State getting a victory out here today if he has enough fuel.
Oh no, don't speak too soon though, because look at the gap, it's actually closing. I think he's run out of fuel. He has probably run out of fuel here, Kevin. Disaster. Just as it looks as though
absolutely
it might have been
heartbreaking.
it might have been the most golden moment of his career so far in iRacing, but it looks as though it's just gonna be a quick heartbreak as well, because he's gonna have to slow the car a bit. But if he actually timed it right, he might just be able to still finish in the top 5.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye, as I see Evandro Dantas closing the gap now too. So I think Tim State doing everything that he can, trying to play the defensive role, but just not enough speed as Evandro Dantas passing him on the outside. So right now, Tim State staying out, trying to save fuel, coming out here, and what could have been an amazing victory, an absolute underdog moment out here. Unfortunately, Tim State falling back into 5th place, right where he started. So, man, the strategy, really great strategy from Tim State, but like we said, unfortunately, Bruno De Carmo, Ralph Benitez, Evandro Dantas, so we had several people out in front of him, had enough time to get in, get a splash and dash, and hit the road again. So that would have been an amazing moment right there. That would have made the highlight replays for sure.
Oh wow, we could have actually been screaming at the top of our lungs. I know I'm not going to be shouting too much because it's just going to break the mic, but really, we could have been, or what could have, we could have had one of the biggest upsets ever in AMX if Tim State won that one. But a top 5 nonetheless would not be coming himself with too much shame. He will definitely look his head up high with that one. But everyone knows full well now that 19 laps around the circuit, you may not have enough fuel. So that will be an interesting plot point here coming into the second heat, Kevin.
Yeah, and I've seen someone out there in chat also saying, all right, Bruno De Carmo is definitely going to set the fastest lap out there. It looks like, well, that was his brother saying he knows him and he knows him too well. Bruno De Carmo did indeed get the fastest lap before the end of the race. So great job to see that going on out there. A lot of these drivers, of course, your BenQ session winner out here, Bruno De Carmo, having to pit for fuel with a splash and dash, but making it back out in time to retain that first place position. In second place, we got Ralph Benitez. Third, Evandro Dantas. Fourth place, Gaston Culavi. Fifth, Tim State. Sixth, Victor Miranda. Seventh, Francesco Biasiotto. Eighth, Miguel Araujo. Ninth place, Gerard Sardeni. 10th, Diego Villarreal. Alec Brown coming in 11th place, and rounding it off, Jackson Asenje in 12th place, who unfortunately was holding off in the pits after that first lap incident.
Oh, wow, wait. It's only the first heat of the night, and there's still one more to go here.
And just like that, the driver's already off. So these guys are hitting the grid. They're out here super quick. So not a crazy turn one incident like we had earlier on. So man, we're going to have to keep it up with these guys. Are eager to be back on the track. So far still Jackson Sanjay leading it from pole position. Alec Brown right there in second place, and followed by Gerard Sardani in third. So we'll have to see where these guys get it. They're able to learn from the heat number one, not get that turn number one incident. But like we said, there's still plenty of room. Right now getting very dicey as we go into the chicane, almost a too wide into the chicane, but luckily these drivers slot in line, get that train going early on.
Yeah, but as a result of that, the concertina effect comes into play, as because Brown was actually held back for a second. He actually now knocked into the other driver. It's like, again, concertina, the accordion effect. Everybody comes together. And for Brown, well, unfortunately, he's been given the short end of the stick. He's going to get swallowed up by the rest of the field.
And I'm going to, just say, I mean, huge props given to Brown out here going against these pro drivers. I know I've had a few people invited out here, and they see, as I talk about that, a spin out right there going down. Brown, unfortunately, looking like he is now going to be in the back of the pack. So a spin out there going into turn number one. Luckily did not take out a lot of drivers, so unfortunate for Brown, but that leaves room for other drivers such as Araujo now to be making moves. Evandro Danta starting to climb up as well. These guys nearly, a lot of them less than 0.3 of a second between each other, so definitely lap number two, these guys going in, and almost another two wide to see back there in the background. But right now it is Jackson Sanjay in first, Gerardo Sardani in second, and Victor Miranda in third.
Yeah, Brazilian, Spaniard, Brazilian in the top three, with a Uruguayan in fourth place. There is Villarreal, so he's looking to make up for a bit of a disappointing first heat. As you can see there, he narrowly just got clouted onto the side by Brown, but amazingly, half spin, gets the brakes on and gets the car pointing in the right direction almost immediately. But he's unfortunately right at the back here, as now further back up in front, Miranda, Sardini and Villarreal are going to lock in battle, as support for Jackson Resende was going through there, as Bora Jaksu is being rung out.
So absolutely, I mean, with these drivers battling it out for second place right now, it's definitely might leave plenty of room for Jackson to start walking away with the lead early on. We're only on lap number 3, and there's already been a lot of action going on out here. So of course, keep in mind, folks, so Victor Miranda did have the fastest in qualifying and did pretty well. He had not quite the results that he wanted in heat number 1, but now in heat number 2, Victor Miranda already up 5 positions. Ralph Benitez up 8 positions. So we have the top 3 drivers right now in the league. Well, I'd say the top 3 as far as license class goes. Professional, the highest you can get. So the top 3 pro drivers now sitting first, second, third, as well as a Brazil 1, 2, 3. We'll see if they're able to hold on to it, as we had a Brazil 1, 2, 3 going in for heat number 1. Will it be heat number 2? There's a very good chance, but we have the likes of Diego Villarreal right on the heels, as well as Biasiotto doing pretty well except for a couple mistakes. So if these drivers are able to keep out of the mistakes, they're definitely going to be putting on a battle for the podium.
And look at those iRatings being stacked up. For a second before Tim State entered the pits, every single one of them was grouped basically according to their license. So that looked quite beautiful for a second, but unfortunately Tim State broke rank, but it's only because he had to actually go into the pit lane to up a bit of fuel. So that's foreshadowing then what's to come, as Sardini, as I was reacting to earlier, he did go off just a bit onto the long way around to the circuit. That's why he dropped from P3 all the way to P10, right behind Dantas now. So he took a slight detour, had a warning on that, and rightfully just wait for it to burn away so that he could get back into racing speed. So clever driving there. It's just unfortunate that he had to actually go for a slight detour nearly halfway into Idaho.
Yeah, it looked like he was getting a little bit close at the other drivers. So, I mean, I think for him it was either, okay, I end up going off track or I end up going into another driver. So definitely keeping him in the race. Now he's going to have to battle his way all the way back through the entire grid nearly to get up if he wants any shot at this. But like we said, we're only 5 laps into this thing, so we're going to have to see it. I think this track is absolutely perfect for these kinds of cars. I think all the way up to GT4s, even, I mean, of course, MX5 Cup cars we see out here a lot. Some of even maybe the F4 cars. So once you start getting that, not the most wide of tracks, unless you're on without the chicanes. The chicanes really introduced that narrow bottleneck, kind of having to make sure these drivers are on their toes out here.
Yeah, it certainly does give you that kind of feeling of, well, you need to wrap your hands around the knuckles. Wrap your knuckles around the wheel just to drive these things. And it is a white knuckle ride for some of the drivers, as we saw in that first heat. How the slipstream is so powerful. And case in point right now, Miranda just breezes past Benitez to go up to P2. But again, the more they fight, the more they're going to let Resende go away.
So we'll have to see, as right now we got back on board with Bruno de Carmo. So now it is the Brazilians 1 through 4. All that's left is Evandro Dantas to get up into 5th place for them to entirely sweep the board out here in heat number 2. But like we mentioned earlier, just seeing the livery out there on some of these drivers' cars. I know usually we're used to seeing Bruno de Carmo in the Delete the Esports livery, but I think whenever we see them in these low horsepower vehicles, some of these junior entry level vehicles, that they just kind of have some fun with it. You can see it's all smiles from these guys. It's definitely going to be getting super close right behind Ralph Benitez. I think right here we'll look for Bruno de Carmo, see if he's going to make a move as he's just trying to back off a little bit. We know he has the pace over Ralph Benitez. Of course, we got to see Bruno de Carmo doing a back and forth last heat all the entire time. So we'll see, is he going to try it? He makes a peek, but nope, there's room, and he does. He goes for it. So we'll have to see, just slotting in right there. Of course, all these guys, we have the teammates towards the front of the pack. They're looking to make it a Delinte 1, 2, 3 as well out here, I believe.
Yeah, that would be really Tony Kanaan's best day ever, isn't it? Apart from winning the Indy 500, of course. To have his proteges winning it up in front, and it looks as though that will certainly be the case. And if Dantas could get by Araujo, that would make it 5 Brazilians in the top 5. So that would be great. For Resende, though, he can't relax right now because he knows full well that the slipstream is so powerful here that any one of these guys in this top 4 could easily be up in front at one point.
Yeah, so Jackson with the early lead going out here, but like we said, these guys not battling it too much all the way down into 4th place. They're just having a great time out here. Of course, Jackson Asensio, we know though, once he turns it into overdrive and he starts defending heavily, as we can see right here, these guys getting in line, starting to snake down the Sam Posey straight. It's all smiles. I'm very curious to see though, wonder how many of these teammates are on comms with each other out here. I know we got a lot of people going back and forth. Seen Bruno de Carmo, of course, streaming out here as well. So, nearly going too wide the entire time through turns number 1 and number 2. But these guys still sliding it back in line. Jackson Sanjay, all these drivers up front, it is all smiles. So, a little bit of cutting grass out there. So, a little bit of Formula V lawn mowing going on out here. Nothing too crazy. But just like that, they got to be a little more careful sometimes, because it is very easy once you start, hey, you're out here having fun at the front of the pack. But as we've seen last heat, those sausage curbs can take these drivers out just like that. So far so good out here. Lap number 8 of 19. Jackson Sanjay still leading the pack.
Certainly, and Rabang Jip says, are they going to pit again? Let's see first, because Tim State did pull the trigger early, though he is now just a lap behind. So let's see if that particular strategy works, as now Benitez side by side with Resende and de Carmo watching brief here. Looks as though another Brazilian's got put to the front, and great news for the Brazilians as well. Top 5 it is, because Dantas has actually the dispatched P5 away from Kulhavi, I think. So now it's the Brazilians up in front, but this particular group is the closest of the bunch. Let's see who's going to be the winner of all of those, because it's just too hard to call this point.
We'll have to see if tire degradation starts coming into play. I mean, we already have a couple of drivers out here, about 3 drivers so far, hitting a sub 1 minute 4 second lap. So a lot of these guys getting a little bit faster, although the track is still out here. Looks like the track temp is at 51 degrees. The air temp about 32 degrees. So a little bit warmer out here now. Definitely might play into some of that tire degradation. So that, along with fuel savings, knowing that these guys had to pit for fuel, definitely strategy is coming into play. I think that's one thing that we never seen coming. Of course, we always expect it for the endurance races, but out here at AMX Zero, we did not expect the pit strategy to be coming into play today.
Oh, certainly. It's kind of weird to see that suddenly every single one of them is pitting on the last lap. As you can see now, the 4 drivers in the inset, Benitez, Resende de Carmo, and Miranda all having fun here at the front. And apparently, according to Fabio De Carmo, he says that he's singing Forum Coração Signano. I think it's a song that he mentions is actually from a Spanish duo. It's called Futuro Prometido, so it's a promised future for them then if they manage to just get it through here. But they're all having fun. It's all smiles right now. But when it comes to the punch after this, let's see if someone's gonna buck it all up and try to actually win this race.
And looking out here too, I'm still curious. I mean, it does look like Tim State is the only person that has had to hit the pits this time around. But like we said, fuel savings coming into play out here today. As we see now, Bruno De Carmo making the move to the inside over Jackson Asenje. These two guys right here, of course, the teammates having a great time out here. But I'm very curious to see if we're going to see any of these guys in the top 4, maybe even the top 5, make any incidences. What we see now, a battle looks like going on between Araujo. Vandro Dantas falling down in the timings a little bit quick. So Araujo, Kulavi, Dantas, I think is where the battle's going to be going on right now.
Now we're going to jump straight to them. It's a 5-way fight for this position with Araujo leading the way, Kulhavi but second in this particular battle, and Dantas now has dropped behind though, so maybe that was a bit of a slide that caused him to actually drop a couple of positions and incidentally behind the pencil car, so he'll try to erase that from his memory by just getting up to the back of him.
And it's crazy to see the contrast between what's going on at the front of the field, between what's going on here in the middle of the field. In the front, it looks like it's just all smiles, but here we see from Evandro Dantas just trying to lock it in, trying to make sure I'm going to get as many positions as I can, but I have to get through Kulavi Araujo first. About a 4-second gap between 4th and 5th place. So, like we said, the Brazilian drivers up front is, a spin on the Sam Posey straight. That looks like there's Araujo getting taken out now, falling in the standings.
Oh, you can hear the grinding on the barriers there from Araujo's accident as we were passing by. It was actually Dantas and Kulhavi getting through, with Kulhavi being the one that punted Araujo out of the way. Well, that sharpened his pencil up in front, isn't it? Though that little black mark may just be for decoration. It certainly has taken a bit of a knock.
And it wasn't commentator's curse this time around. It was the Twitch chat curse right there. Seen someone say, hey man, they want to see some crashes going on. Well, hey, there's your crash as we see a picture-in-picture replay there, Araujo. So these guys just, getting really just right into the rear of each other. Man, that one, I don't know if he was thinking he might be able to bump draft in here, but these cars do not take kindly to the bump draft. So Araujo, they're just getting hit from behind and spinning off. Like we said, not sure if the racing stewards are going to have something to say about that one after the race. But for right now, Araujo sitting down in the pit lane.
Yep, while Kulhavi gets to sharpen his pencil and get up to P4 right now because of that one free position, as in fact, Resende has actually gone to the pits. So that's why we have every single one of these guys that we're watching right now gain one free position. But they know full well, after what happened, the events that happened in the first heat, they might start thinking about going to the pits after this.
Yeah, we might have to see there, because now Bruno De Carmo, a 2-second gap between himself and Victor Miranda in second place. So all 4 of those top drivers were really close, but something happened that now there's a little bit of a gap between second and third place. Of course, that left plenty of room now. Gaston Kulavi to interrupt the Brazilian party up front. So Kulavi now trying to fight with everything he has to get onto the podium for heat number 2. Right now, we are lap 13 of 19 in heat 2. So these guys still have a little bit. It can happen for Kulavi to break up the Brazilian 1-2-3. And right there, we see an incident for Jackson Sendry. So, these guys just getting a little bit squirrely out there, and everyone trying to avoid the big one. So luckily, not taking out the other 3 drivers, but unfortunately, those guys having to cut the course will get a slowdown penalty for them.
Yeah, that was actually Benitez and Miranda going off, but it looks as though it hasn't affected him one bit because they managed to gain some time away from Bruno De Carmo, but he'll probably be thinking about strategizing to get the positions away in the closing stages. So we'll keep an eye out on that particular battle because Miranda and Benitez are still close to each other. Meanwhile, Kulhavi, who was, well, let's just say involved in that incident, as further behind, Biasiotto spins.
So just like that, and ooh, another driver getting taken out. Oh man, it is chaos going up through the chicanes right now. We see Biasiotto still trying to get back on track, and looks like that is the number 32 of Evandro Dantas, who is completely upside down. So Dantas now having to hit the pits, as well as Araujo still in the pits. So two drivers looking like they may be out of this race, Amir.
Well, they're out of it completely, isn't it? Because we're in the closing stages now. But that little slide, it looks as though Biasiotto just locked the rears. It was enough to get drivers involved in that Constantina effect. And unfortunately for Dantas, he was the guy who literally got shafted the worst out of that. He literally landed on his roll hoop, almost on his virtual helmet. And that signals literally the end of his race. As you can see, well, Sardini was actually right at the back of all this. But, oh, we just touched the side of a spinning Biasiotto. And where was Dantas in all this? Well, amazingly, Dantas, who was actually trying to avoid the accident, ended up being part of it.
And just like that, so that is just how dangerous that chicane section is out here at Lime Rock Park. So these guys, especially, I mean, just like that, things have changed up once again. We've seen a couple laps ago, it was Jackson Asenge who was leading the pack, got sent all the way back down to, I believe, about 8th or 9th place. Now has made his way back up because those other guys crashed. But like we said in heat number 1, the chicanes have been the absolute enemy number 1 out here in today's race. So we'll have to see as it's back to Victor Miranda, Ralph Benitez, Bruno De Carmo, Brazilian 1, 2, 3. Now Gaston Culavi able to slot up into 3rd place. So now with only a few laps left in this heat, the things are starting to heat up. Gaston Culavi doing his best to get that podium position out there for Argentina.
Well, you might say you had to put an asterisk on that because, again, he did big time hit the back of Marcos Araujo. And Miguel Araujo, sorry. Miguel was just shunted off and slammed to the barriers out of the race. So if he wins this one, it'll be under slightly controversial circumstances. So we'll wait and see what's going to happen here within the last 3 laps to go in what has been an amazing second heat. Really, the slow cars provide amazing racing.
Yeah, we're seeing out here. So definitely things are heating up quite literally on the track, as well as the drivers turning up their driving. So like we said earlier, I mean, seeing where the track temps are, I think about right now, having grooved tires, definitely tire wear is starting to be a little bit more of an issue. It's pretty clean for the majority of the race with only a few incidents here and there, but these last couple of laps, we've seen absolute chaos unfolding out here for heat number 2. So I think now, as these tires are starting to show a little bit more degradation, like we said, folks, it's only pretty short laps around here. I mean, still a pretty short race for AMX Zero compared to some of the other classes, but definitely in these tires where it is all mechanical grip in the Formula V's, they are pushing them to their absolute limits. Whenever you see these guys getting sub 1 minute 4 second laps around this park in the Formula V, you know they are putting those tires to their absolute limit.
Certainly. And the fact that they're being semi-slicks, they actually can last slightly longer compared to slick tires. So degradation, yeah, it might be a bit of a slight issue, but I think there's enough life in these tires to actually go all the way. What is the main concern right now is whether or not these guys have enough fuel after what happened in that first heat, whether or not they can actually bring it all the way home, or we're going to see an awkward situation where we thought it was going to be a slipstream battle to the line, ends up becoming a bit anticlimactic because they're coming to the pits this time by. We're on the penultimate lap now.
So just like that, let's see if Gaston Culavi, like you said earlier, maybe a little bit controversial, if he's able to even sneak out a win over Victor Miranda, but he still has Ralph Benitez, Bruno De Carmo shortly behind him. All of these drivers in the top 4 absolutely have the potential to walk away with the win out here in heat number 2. So it's really just going to come down to, again, who makes a mistake, who doesn't, who's going to work together. We see there maybe a bit of a slowdown as now Ralph Benitez, Bruno De Carmo, they were side by side. Ralph Benitez up into 3rd place, Gaston Culavi in 2nd, Victor Miranda still leading the pack. So we'll have to see, as someone asking out there about the stewards. So a lot of the stewards come in here, definitely review the race, what is going on. Not necessarily making penalties during the race, but absolutely if there is something going on, these guys can get time penalties after the race. So here we go as the white flag comes out, Amir. Here we see Gaston Culavi making the move, trying to hold on to 1st position. Victor Miranda on the outside.
Well, that might be a mistake. Again, we saw how powerful the draft is coming into the line. So Culavi, he might be out in front right now, but if he doesn't get his middle section right, he might just fall prey to Miranda and DeCarmo and Benitez right at the line. So we'll see how this goes first, as Miguel Araujo has actually joined us onto the stream. So as you can see on the top right hand side, it says partner the FIA, which is association, the Korean Auto Racing Association. They are the ASN for Korea, and you'll have to actually file in a protest, so see whether or not any of the drivers that probably gave a collision might just have to be penalized for that one. But we'll put that aside for the time being, as we are into the final few corners here, Kevin.
Right here, just a beautiful move on the inside. So Gaston Culavi, Victor Miranda now leaving the door wide open for Bruno DeCarmo. We have it 3 wide going into the final turn out here at Lime Rock Park. It's going to be a drag race to the finish right now. Victor Miranda leading it. Gaston Culavi, Bruno DeCarmo. Who's going to come across this? Oh, nearly contact between those two, and there is contact, but they're able to hold on to it as they come across the checkered flag. Gaston Culavi, Victor Miranda, Bruno DeCarmo. Almost an incident right at the checkered flag. Bruno DeCarmo doing his best to slot it in, but he'll be walking away with 3rd place. And like we said, Gaston Culavi putting up the brakes. Man, I can't even talk with just how much is going on. Gaston Culavi upsetting the Brazilian 1-2-3, getting his way all the way up into P number 1. So he's going to be enjoying that top spot. But like we said, a bit of incidents going on earlier on, if the racing stewards may have anything to say after the race. But what a finish indeed it was. Let's see what happens from here as the other drivers continue to make their way across the checkered flag.
Wow, and the last time I've seen a 3-way battle to the line like that on a proper road course was IndyCar back in 1997 in Portland, when Mark Blundell won in front of Gilles de Ferran and Raul Boisel. That was actually an amazing finish on a road course, 3-way across the line. You'll never see anything like that in a while, but the Formula V cars just provided all the great action once again, Kevin.
Man, and that one actually reminds me of one that was broadcast out here from AMX. Team Redline had their Real Racers Never Quit series going on between all the teammates, and there was a 1-2-3, Max Verstappen, Chris Lolum. I can't remember the 3rd driver that was involved in that, but I know they were in the F4s out at Mugello. They had an amazing finish just like that. So big shout out there to anyone out there after the race. You guys are going to have to go back and check out the Real Racers Never Quit series that AMX hosted. But for right now, Victor Miranda setting the fastest lap again. So your BenQ session winner, there we see a cheers from Gaston Culavi to the camera. He's sitting in the 1st place, BenQ session winner. Victor Miranda coming in 2nd, Bruno DeCarmo in 3rd, Ralph Benitez in 4th place, Diego Villarreal in 5th, Jackson Assange in 6th, Gerard Sardeni in 7th place, Francesco Biasiotto in 8th, Tim State 9th place, Vandro Dantas 10th place, Alec Brown in 11th, and Miguel Araujo rounding it out in 12th place. So we can see, like I said, these drivers driving it very hard out in the Formula Vs today out at Lime Rock Park. But we know it's going to be another great one coming up after this, Amir.
Oh, certainly Porsche Cup cars and around Road Atlanta. Wow. I just can't think of anything else much better than that to round off the race proceedings here today, but really can't wait for that one. A really fast and windy circuit with some really stiff and hard to control GT Cup cars. Can't wait for that one.
Absolutely, and of course, Road Atlanta, probably one of the more famous tracks out on the East Coast. So I don't know if it's, I mean, there's a debate out here in the U.S. too. It's Georgia. Technically, it's on the East Coast. Technically, it's part of the South. But we're going to be heading over to Braselton, Georgia. Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta. We've seen some great races out there in the past in AMX, as well as other iRacing special events. Of course, host of the Petit Le Mans out there as well, coming up later on this year. But for right now, the Porsche Cup cars, Road Atlanta, could not ask for a better combination this week. I mean, I guess you can always ask for a better combination, but definitely one of the best combinations that we're going to see out here. As you can see, everyone out there as well, just a reminder, you can follow us on all of our social medias, as well as head over to amxrace.com if you want to get into some of the exciting action that we've had so far today.
Yep, certainly.
Like we said with that, Amir,
and
we might just have to see what the results come in after that. I know a lot of incidents going on, a lot of back and forth, but right now, man, it's crazy. The Brazilians came out fighting, they came out swinging, and we're just going to have to see exactly what happens after some of these controversial incidents out here today.
Yeah, especially given the fact that across the line, it was quite a close finish between the top three, and it was amazing how across that Kulhavi managed to come through because he was quite a ways behind, but it's still, again, a bit of an asterisk there. We saw Araujo coming to the comments and saying that, well, there might be some investigation in that and he'll have to file in a protest to really see if he could actually amount to something. But apart from that, the finish was amazing.
So just like that, everyone make sure to stick around. Very shortly, we're going to be heading over to Georgia for Road Atlanta. Of course, another great time out there in the Porsche Cup cars. We will be back very shortly. It's going to be a great race. Max Verstappen back into first place. They want to make that move, but here goes Gustavo Ariel diving to the inside. Gael Valero looking for the move over Archie Neumann. He has it.
And you can just see Beto Silva pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Lallum, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen to Vanderdantis. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Oh, into the carousel immediately. He gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off. He's been tapped and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin. Oh,
and
no.
Dean. Oh, Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lalum does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand. And this is it. Chris Lalum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lalum takes it.
Miranda Pedro Zuma into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone off into the barriers, coming up to the cutting.
David Todd making his way back up, is already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, I spoke too soon there. Sandy goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Todd passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Todd right now going into the pit lane.
We go racing for heat number 1 here in Austria from AMX 20 in towards the Niki Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash. That's a huge lunge from Gaston Calabi, and he's made contact with, I believe, oh wow, it's a chaotic moment here. And slipstream in front for Evo car, and you can just see Petazova pushing Florian Lamigra right over.
Here we go then, Valeri, he looks left, he looks right, he's going to treat the right hand side, which is the inside going 8 to 10 3.
Here in it is. This is the crucial moment in this race. It's looking like it's only going one way. David Dott is going to take the race lead. Heading into the second half of the season, the Hungarian of David Dott has driven a masterclass here with the early pit stop. Not the ideal strategy, but an ideal race winner and an excellent performance.
To save our home, we must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Welcome back, everybody. We are out at Road Atlanta, continuing our day all day long out in the USA, where we are back for AMX5 in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. I am Kevin, and alongside me in the booth today is Amir. Amir, we already got to see some great racing, a bit of controversial racing perhaps going on in AMX Zero, and I already see a lot of these same drivers are going to be battling it out again for AMX5.
Well, with a few extra steps, isn't it? Not only we get some of the same guys, but we get some of the more serial offenders, shall we say, of guys who know how to win races in here. So we're not going to name any names just yet. We'll wait until we get onto the track. But if you see the live timing, you know who I'm talking about.
Absolutely. So, like I said, everyone out there watching, make sure to follow all of our social medias. We post the best in highlights, replays, as well as giveaways from time to time. And if you want to get in here, like I said, amxrace.com, you can get the full schedule, everything going on this season, as well as get signed up if you'd like to. Before we check in on our drivers, like we said, quite a few people that we got to see early on look like already out there getting in some practice. But this is how today's race format is going to go. Like I mentioned, back to AMX5. We've been here since September 7th, and we're going all the way through November 17th with this season's prize pool of $11,000 plus next level racing gear. Our format goes as follows for AMX5. We got our 20-minute qualifier, followed by a top 15 reverse grid, going into heat number 1 of 35 minutes, followed by a second top 15 reverse grid, followed by heat number 2, which is a little bit shorter, of 25 minutes. And one thing to keep in mind for that heat number 1 with our drivers is that they do have to make sure and go. We've seen, well, a little bit longer race. I mean, these drivers having to hit the pits, but also all our drivers Man, English is hard today. All of our drivers must have their driver cams on them. You can get the link via our AMX Discord or on the website. Balances are paid out in balances of $100 every single month. So once you hit $100 to your account, that money's headed your way. We are here every single Saturday and Sunday this season. And like I mentioned, you can head over to amxrace.com to get signed up. Our schedule is as follows. We are here every single Saturday with AMX Zero starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by AMX 5 at 7:10 p.m. And on Sundays, we're switching it up every other week. We got AMX 10 going on at 5:50 p.m. with the doubleheader and the second race at 7:30 p.m. On the opposite weeks, we got AMX 15, our mini enduro races at 5:50 p.m. GMT. And our AMX 5 prize pool goes as follows. For qualifying, the drivers get $12.50, $10 per second, $7.50 for third, going all the way down into 15th. Heat number 1, the prize pool is doubled compared to quali in Heat 2. Drivers walking away in first will get $25, second gets $20, third gets $15, all the way down, and fastest lap getting $2. Then back into heat number 2, a little bit shorter heat, drops it back down to $12.50 for first, second getting $10, and $7.50, with a total prize pool coming to $250 per race. All of the drivers out here for AMX 5 must have a minimum I rating of 2,000. So like we said, quali and heat number 2 are going to be half the points of heat number 1. So the drivers definitely going to want to be focusing on heat 1. But again, out here at Road Atlanta Amir, this is probably one of the most notable tracks, especially going to be a great combination for today's cars as well.
Oh, certainly, Kevin, and the fact that it is a historic circuit that's been around since its opening in 1970 tells you all you need to know that, well, there is more to just turning left, isn't it, in America? There's a lot of great road courses, and Road Atlanta is definitely one of them. It's in the city of Braselton, Georgia, and also the headquarters of, well, close to the spiritual headquarters of NASCAR, but nowadays IMSA actually has a headquarters in Braselton, so it's a point to note why this circuit is also great, because it has an association that really loves their road racing based around here for just about 4 kilometers and in a clockwise direction. So some of these guys might be used to having the direction going their way, but the undulations on this circuit really gives it its character. And to run alongside this particular circuit, we have a car that's also just perfectly suited for it. It is the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, or more specifically the 992 generation of Porsche 911, 510 horses, just about the same as its GT3 counterpart, but with a few missing things like creature comforts that a lot of GT drivers are used to. Traction control, ABS, active stability control, all or nothing in this car. It is a pure raw racing machine. Just under 1.3 tons, rear wheel drive, and flappy pedal gearbox. So you really are in the midst of a raw machine, but with some modernity lumped into it, and along an old school circuit. So really can't wait to see how these cars go around here, Kevin.
Absolutely, and today we are, of course, using the Porsche Cup 911. We want to give these guys every bit of track, so we are on the longer of the layouts. A few different layouts out here, but today, mentioned 4 kilometers, that's about 2.5 miles for all my fellow Americans out there. And today, we are on board right now with Bruno De Carmo in the number 5 Porsche. Of course, Gael Valero, one of the guys to keep an eye on out here. Been coming out here, gloves off this season. He wants to make it another championship for sure. But we have the likes of Bruno De Carmo, Jackson Sanjay, Victor Miranda, quite a few people out here actually that can definitely take that top spot away from him. But like we said, we're only a few weeks into the season. We have plenty of more time to see who is gonna be crowned champion at the end of this season. But definitely a lot of strong contenders out here this season.
Certainly, and we don't forget one of the other guys that really also is a contender in some of these sports cars. It's Peter Zuba, the Hungarian, who's here too. So again, it's one of those guys that I mentioned earlier, those serial offenders, those guys who know how to win races. They're all here today. Now they have been unmasked. Let's see how they will go here. So we're only about almost halfway through qualifying. So in a few minutes time, we will be halfway through. Plenty of time for these guys to actually set a faster lap time. And if you want to find out how some of the drivers are going about, You can actually scan that QR code on the right hand side of the screen to find out what we're seeing as well, how the times are tumbling. And for the time being, it is tumbling in favor of Gallo Valero, who is just 100th ahead of Victor Miranda. So Miranda, who had his promised future slightly shattered at the end of the second heat just now, where he was beaten to the line, now he's actually right up there. So it shows that, well, he's not minding it too much. He's still got the pace
right now. So again, the weather's pretty nice out here, a little bit on the warmer side, about 32 degrees out there. The track temps are about 57 degrees. So like I said, come heat number 1, with that being a little bit longer heat than heat number 2, that should come into play. But as well, these drivers do have to come out here and take a mandatory pit stop for heat number 1. So make sure everyone to keep that in mind. Heat number 1 a little bit more on the, I'd say, really what these guys are going to do with their strategy. So definitely we'll have to take a look out here. But now riding on board with Gallo Valero, one guy who his strategies have pretty much worked out nearly every single time for him to come out into the pits, whether he's going for the overcut, the undercut. Definitely a veteran out here today. But we still see Jackson Asenje holding on to that top spot. Like I said, still plenty of times, just under 12 minutes left in this qualifying session. I'm sure those top 3 are going to change quite a bit, Amir.
Yep, certainly. And given the fact that these Porsche Cup cars, it is a good learning tool for future Porsche factory drivers and for iRacers. Just the most competitive racing series on the planet in virtual form. The Porsche, the PES Championship, the Super Cup in iRacing is just very close. And it's case in point here. These cars just provide so much good close racing that a single mistake can just tumble you out of a potentially good position. And for certainly between Sandy and Valero right now, 0.2 of a second, nothing to be sneezed at this point. We're waiting for to see the times are tumbling, but definitely the bar has been set quite high here by Resende.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just seeing the gap right now, super close, like we've seen earlier. Gallo Valero, Victor Miranda. Victor Miranda still trying to look to best his own time, but of course the Delete the Esports drivers out here, it is a bit of a stacked grid in favor of the Brazilians. So there's a very good chance that we're going to have Brazilians on the podium today. Of course, like we said, Jackson Asenja, Gallo Valero, we've seen those two battle it out time and time again since AMX has been around. Those have been two of the top guys, always getting into battles with each other. So as much as we like to have a good time out here, we know that things are going to get turned up to 11 out here today with as close as these qualifying times are so far. So like we said, nearly halfway through qualifying, and with the gap being this close between so many of the drivers, I have a great feeling that as long as these guys can keep it clean out here at Road Atlanta, it's definitely going to be one for the books.
Certainly. And speaking of turning up for the books, well, a lot of drivers are actually coming through the pit lane quite normally as opposed to just pausing out on track. So I think it is actually a foreshadowing, isn't it, what is to come. They're trying to practice their pit stops just in case that there's not enough fuel to get by.
Yeah, definitely. So especially for heat number 1, I think a lot of times you get blinded by just, I need to set as many laps out on track as I can, that you completely forget about where the pit entry is on some of these courses. So of course out here today as well, the pit speed 45 miles per hour, about 72 kilometers per hour. So a little bit slower of a pit speed for how long the pits are out here at Road Atlanta. Of course, not as long as we see in some other Formula One tracks, especially some of these European tracks out there. I know a big one that comes to mind is Spa, as well as Silverstone. So those pit entries definitely have to be very careful for. So out here at Road Atlanta, definitely these guys are gonna be putting out. But right now, putting it down, we have Peter Zuba on camera, currently sitting in 7th position. So let's see if he's able to best it out here. Currently sitting with a 1:22.040. So the top 5 drivers have all set sub 1 minute 22 second laps. Peter Zuba looking to get his name on the board as well.
Yeah, he's about 400s behind Ralph Benitez. And incidentally, if there was ever an AI that could get a lap time that's perfect to what Ralph did, he will exactly be one of those guys. He's a yardstick at 22.000. It is perfect. And we can see some people on a flyer. And speaking of flyers, here's a bit of a fun fact. Now, I think a lot of people might have seen that clip of a GT1 Porsche flying in the air, landing on its roof years ago. Well, fun fact, that circuit happened to be Road Atlanta, and it involved the Porsche 911 in 1998 when it came up to this particular corner. And perfect, the camera angle is about exactly the same, but luckily though, the hill has been flattened since then because, of course, the year after that we saw the Mercedes CLRs flying into the forest around Le Mans. So that's the reason why this particular hill around Road Atlanta was also flattened to prevent those kind of situations happening again. And what a coincidence as well that we're driving in Porsches right now.
Yeah, and even with that, now that you mentioned the Porsches flying through the air, there's a clip going around online. I've seen it, I think, on TikTok, as all the other social medias, on YouTube. It might have even made some of these, not top 10 clips on YouTube, but same thing of the Porsche just getting absolutely flung into the air, seemingly out of nowhere. So definitely it happens in real life. It happens out here in the sim as well. Hopefully, like I said, fingers crossed, nothing gets too aggressive out here. Of course, we run the fixed setups, so the fixed setups out here in iRacing tend to be pretty safe. Right now, we're seeing Victor Miranda, who so far looks like he has set the best through sector number 1, his personal best through sector number 2, and now going through. So we're going to stay on board with Victor Miranda as he comes across the start-finish line. Will he improve on his time? Looks like no, just barely misses out. So those last couple sectors, Victor Miranda going to have to practice just a little bit more. Currently sitting in 3rd place, but we know he has enough pace through those first half of the track to get up higher. But right now, it's still Jackson Asenge in 1st and Gael Valero in 2nd place.
Yeah, man, those two have been together 1st and 2nd throughout the 5 or 6 minutes that we've actually been paying attention to when they started qualifying. But I'm pretty sure the times will start tumbling towards the end when the track really gets gripped up and is quite optimum.
So let's see now. So 14 minutes into this thing, Jackson Asenge still sitting pretty comfortably. Of course, he's been getting better and better, only faster as time has gone on. Right now, holding the top spot with a 1 minute 21.594. Still about 1300ths of a second ahead of Gael Valero. So we'll have to keep an eye, like I said, about all the top 3, as well as Pedro Dean is going to be another driver to keep an eye out here on track. We've been seeing him improve week in and week out. We know that he is getting hungry to get away with that top spot. So definitely, but along with his other fellow Brazilians, like I said early on, I think we may have a very good chance at having a Brazilian 1, 2, 3 out here going into heat 1 and 2.
Yep. Certainly, some of those main protagonists will be getting involved here. And one of them we're looking at right now is Bruno De Carmo, who was involved in the thick of it in that very first race just now around Lime Rock Park. It looks as though he is going to improve on his lap time as well. Meanwhile, Valero goes straight to the top with a 21.4. That is absolutely blindingly fast. We did see a purple set in between. Car hops over the curb onto 3 wheels for a second. It looks as though he is pushing for yet another lap here as the Carmo goes out to P3.
And I'm looking at the timing between Jackson Asenge and Bruno De Carmo as well. So only about 0.004 of a second separating those two drivers. So of course, the two Delinta Esports team drivers, we got to see a lot of friendly back and forth going on between all those guys for AMX Zero. Of course, we were out there in the Formula Vs. Those guys really pushing it, but now putting them in higher horsepower vehicles, we'll really get to see how much they can just push it out here on track. Of course, a few of the drivers out on track are in Pro Series. They got that Pro license out there for the Formula cars. Still pretty good out here when you switch it up. Porsche Cup cars, like you were mentioning earlier, Amir, especially when you get to the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Definitely seen what. Now look at the timing screen. Gael Valero might just improve his lap time even more than what it was earlier.
Yep, he has first and third fastest sectors overall. Second sector was a little bit slower, but it looks as though he might just smash this lap time that he previously said he has by a 10th, 21.3, 2/10 clear at the front.
And looking there, Bruno De Carmo right behind him now, finally getting up into second place. So we thought it might be Jackson Asenge and Gael Valero being the 1-2 getting into the heats, but it may very well be Bruno De Carmo and Gael Valero, as now Bruno De Carmo doing a great job setting it up. But one thing we know, we said it earlier on, the top 3 are going to be a great battle. Hopefully, going into heat number 1, we said it might just come down to who has the best pit strategy. Of course, these guys definitely going to be keeping an eye on their fuel. So I think some of these guys that have been out here really just staying out on track the whole time, not really trying to hit the pits as much, just trying to calculate how much fuel do I have at the beginning of the race, how much fuel will I need to be able to finish the race. Of course, heat number 1 going into it is going to be about 26 laps and heat number 2 is going to drop it down to 19 laps. So heat number 2 out here in AMX5 this season is going to be more of a sprint race.
Yep, and there's a bit of a running joke on the Brazilian side of the comment section. Poco Prata says Bruno Carmo's hair something to do with it. Yeah, very aerodynamic, isn't it? He's got that flick, or maybe a fan somewhere in the house that really blows the hair up like that. But whatever it is doing him wonders here as he goes up to P2. But he's gonna have to get his work cut out even more, because look at Valero, 21.1.
Man, that's just an absolutely crazy time out here so far. So now he's just making that gap even more and more, but also riding along Pedro Dean, able to best Jackson Asenge. So Pedro Dean currently 3rd in qualifying with just a couple minutes to go. And I think Pedro Dean, like we mentioned, one of those drivers, I really see the longer he is on here, he is only getting better and better. Now 3rd fastest in qualifying. So although he may not have the highest rating, I think this guy very, very soon could be getting up into the pro licenses in some of the other iRacing series.
Oh, definitely he could work his way up through there if he could do some really good results. Though, we're looking at Pedrodrine right now, it looks as though he might have actually backed off right there, because there was so much traffic in there. He just might as well back off and wind himself up for another lap, as further behind on the timing sheet and on the road, Tim State's coming across the line, just about 2.5 seconds behind, making that now 2.4 seconds behind Valero. He will definitely be happy that pace is not too far off, and he'll be right at the front when we flip the script.
So here we go, as now we reach the final minute out here in our qualifying session. Jackson Asenge still looking to get back up into the top 3. He was leading it early on, but the other top 3 drivers had just edged him out. So now Pedro Dean looking like he is sending his best through Sector 2 as well. So he is looking to improve on his time. I think we're going to be hanging on for Jackson to see if he's able to get back into the top 3. Man, this is... I don't even know how we're gonna have to describe this. As long as, like I said, I'm not even gonna say what I think might happen in heat number 1, because I don't want to put the commentator's curse out there. I'll save that for heat number 2. But all jokes aside, as we are rounding it off, these drivers trying to finally put it in. Gael Valero going faster again, improving on his time once more before he hit the pits.
Yep, still a 0.1, but clear in a way. The fastest guy in the entire field right now. Let's go. Pedro Dean has something to say about it. Looking at 2nd and 3rd sectors. Personal best and overall best 3rd sector. Is he going to improve his time? Oh, the answer is no. Anticlimactically, 400 slower than his previous one. But regardless of that, it was quite an entertaining qualifying session. Now, we're going to go into the nitty-gritty here. The first heat and how it will go on the windy, undulating corners here at Road Atlanta.
Absolutely, and just seeing these guys get faster and faster every single lap that goes by. We'll have to keep an eye out on the weather as well. Like I said, it's only partly cloudy out there, pretty warm day, but with the length of these races, anything can happen. But there we have right now, our BenQ session winner finally coming back into frame. Gael Valero, one man who is no stranger to sitting on that top step. 1st in qualifying. 2nd place, we got Bruno De Carmo. 3rd place, Pedro Dean. 4th, Jackson Asenge. 5th, Ralph Benitez. In 6th place, we got Victor Miranda. 7th, Peter Zuba. 8th place, Gaston Kulavi. 9th, Evandro Dantas. 10th place, Diego Villarreal. And rounding it out in 11th place, we got Tim State. So Tim State almost walking away with the upset earlier on in the AMX Zero. Unfortunately, just did not have enough fuel to get that 1st place. We'll have to see what Tim can do out here in the Porsches.
Yep, certainly he'll try to get that Porsche flying up in front. He might be 2.5 seconds behind, but if he could keep his momentum and pace up in front, he might just be able to stand a chance of replicating that top 5 he had in the 1st heat at Lime Rock Park. And speaking of flying, of course, a bit of a running joke among people who know IMSA, that back straight at Road Atlanta is not just only undulating for cars, but that also used to be a runway for, banned substance transit, I would say, if people know the story, of course, why IMSA had a really funny nickname back in the 80s.
But right now, so we get to see our drivers hitting the grid, just a couple more making it onto the track. But it will be Tim State leading on pole position, followed by Diego Villarreal in that front row. So two of these drivers, like we said, a little bit slower in qualifying, but all bets are off once we start getting going. And here we go, folks. So the cars are off, and it is already 3, nearly 4 wide going into turn number 1. Tim Stay still holding on to that front spot, but here we have the number 12, Victor Miranda, doing an amazing job on the outside. Sorry, it's the number 17 car. But also right behind him, he has Evandro Dantas, Peter Zuba, these guys with absolutely amazing pace. We're going to have to see just what they're going to be able to do out here. Tim State still holding that defensive line from Victor Miranda, but we know Victor Miranda has the pace. I think he's just waiting for that perfect opportunity.
And that perfect opportunity might come here at the double right-hander onto the back straight. If he tries to dive on the inside, then no. Waiting for the tires to heat up properly. Now he'll try to wait onto the back straight and coming into the chicanes after this. That's his best chance of getting into the lead early doors. But that's what he really wants right now. Just to get clean up in front and waiting for the other guys behind to actually catch up to him. So really then, one guy standing his way from an early lead, and that's Tim Stay. Let's see how much of a defense Tim puts up here. Evandro Dantas, a fellow Brazilian's behind, and Peter Zuba, the Hungarian who's quite fast. He's definitely what to watch out for. But here comes Miranda on the inside, and he makes it stick into the chicane.
So absolutely just showing as we come down the hill. Now finally rounding it out, trying to round out lap number 1. We have, again, a couple of pro drivers out here in the Formula class, still putting it down very good out here. Tim State holding on to that second place position, trying to still be a little bit defensive. So again, Tim, another one of those drivers that seems to be getting better and better. So Victor Miranda out here showing some pretty decent pace, already up 5 positions from where he started on the grid. So far is the most up. Diego Villarreal unfortunately down 8 positions, and Jackson Asenje in the pits. So quite a bit of action going on, and now as these guys are starting to get the train forming, we'll have to see is Tim State now holding off 2 drivers side by side behind them. It looks like Evandro Dantas and Peter Zuba. Peter Zuba now sliding in right behind, knows he has Ralph Benitez behind him as well. Gonna have to be careful that he doesn't leave that door open too much.
Oh well, that kind of door was already unhinged for a second, but luckily though, that was not to be the case here for Peter Zuba. He's managed to come through up to P3 in front of Benitez. State though, because of the guys fighting behind, he's getting a bit of breathing room, but I doubt that will last any longer because those guys behind are coming in real fast like gangbusters.
So here we go. So Peter Zuba, we said, was going to be one to watch out here, already up into 3rd place. Definitely looking to be, and it looks like someone is off into the pits. That's going to be Benitez. So Benitez, Pedro Dean now out into the pits. Of course, everyone out here, just a reminder, heat number 1, there is a mandatory pit stop. So Jackson Senji first in the pits. Now we have Ralph Benitez, Pedro Dean following suit.
Yep, but it looks as though that might be for strategic purposes, just to get enough fuel in it. Tires, I'm pretty sure these Michelin slicks can just last an entire stint. It's just that fuel may be a question, and certainly 1 liter of fuel added on it might just be enough. Though then again, longer format like this, and all bets are off. You never know what you're going to get. As around the outside comes Zuba, taking that position away from State, coming into the double right-handers here. The Carmo tries to follow suit, but he gets locked out a bit.
Now we have a great shot on board from Bruno Di Carmo. Looking to the outside, like we've seen, Peter Zuba able to have just enough grip. There, Tim State trying to hold the defensive line, but just not enough pace out here, as we see side by side with Bruno Di Carmo. Now going to this next left-hander. Will Bruno Di Carmo be able to hold it around on the outside? Tim State diving up the inside, trying to hold on to that position. Ooh, looks like a little bit of contact right there, bumping Tim State. Now going off track, leaving the door wide open for Gael Valero to take advantage of that as well. But Bruno Di Carmo says, you know what, I don't want to be getting in fights unless I have to. I'm going to hit the pits and come back out with a little bit of clean air.
Yep, that's a very smart move, isn't it, for the drivers who are coming to the pits. Resende has actually been one of them. The Carmo was in that immediate contact and knew full well if he continued for another lap, he will lose the momentum position. So might as well just dive into the pits, minimize that time lost.
And I'm looking at the livery right there on Gael Valero. So, of course, Gael Valero, one of the Apex Racing Team drivers. I noticed has the Union Jack on the side of his car. Of course, Gael Valero, the Frenchman. I'm just wondering if this was just the quickest one that he had there. Of course, Apex Team, we got a lot of their drivers out there in the Porsche Esports Super Cup Challenge. So we might have to ask him about that later on. What happened that he doesn't have the French flag on the side, but nonetheless, that's not slowing him down any more than any other race. He is still in third place, looking to hunt down Peter Zuba, still about 1.2 seconds behind. So Victor Miranda now, with all that clean air, is looking to capitalize on it, already almost 4 seconds ahead of second place. So Gael Valero now, we'll see if he has enough to reel it in. Of course, some of these drivers still have yet to take their pit stop. So right now, all the way up into 7th place, those drivers will still need to take a pit.
Yep, and among those that have not pitted yet are the guys in front of Vicente Benitez, De Carmo, and Dean. So the Brazilian guys from 8th and 11th have actually done their pit stops, waiting for what the other guys are going to plan to do here. And certainly, one of those guys we're banking on to make a pit stop somewhere around the midpoint, or maybe towards the end of the race, is Victor Miranda, 3 seconds ahead of Peter Zuba. So really, today he's been on song in all the races he's done so far. But what has eluded him so far is actually a heat win.
Yeah, and out here too. So, I mean, Victor Miranda during qualifying was sitting right in the middle of the pack in 6th position, but has been doing very well out here in heat number 1 so far. Like you said, setting the fastest time so far out in heat number 1. But we know there are plenty of other guys out here that can best that. So especially once some of these guys get out in the clean air, I think right now that's really what has been helping Victor Miranda. He's not focusing too much on the guys right behind him. Of course, having his teammates very close behind as well. We see some of the guys that have hit, Bruno De Carmo, Ralph Benitez, those guys teammates as well. So a lot of the guys, we always say how beneficial it can be whenever you have your team out on the track with you. Of course, we know Gael Valero, we've seen it with Aaron Vasquez. I believe it was about a couple of weeks ago. Aaron Vasquez, of course, out in the PESCC, fighting it down out there, as well as some other drivers that are normally in here. Really being able to put their pro license to use, of course, like we said, during the summer and fall seasons out here, we get to see a lot of drivers. Now, side by side, Bruno De Carmo, Ralph Benitez. I think it's going to come down to here. We always talk about, do any of these guys have team orders? I mean, I think most of the time we get to see just what they have. You know, a lot of people make fun of the papaya rules, so not sure if Delinte Esports also has papaya rules out here.
Well, coincidentally, you mentioned that. Tony Kanaan is an advisor to the Aero McLaren Schmidt-Peterson team, so yeah, that rule may apply here if it comes to the punch. And if anyone's asking what's the papaya rule, well, it was basically a rule set up by the McLaren team to have what they call rules of engagement when their drivers are fighting for the win.
And we see right there someone, Porco Prata, saying no papaya rules for Delinte. So these guys, of course, I mean, really at the end of the day, you kind of know from qualifying, from working with your teammates, who is faster in what cars on what tracks. And here we see an incident in the picture-in-picture. Diego Villarreal right there in the number 22, cutting it just a little bit tight, getting loose, going up the hill, and unfortunately just spinning out there. We see get sent into a half spin. So this track, still a little bit dangerous, not as dangerous as we got to see earlier at Lime Rock, but going up that uphill section, you just start losing a bit of grip in those front wheels, like we've seen from Diego, unfortunately just getting sent off the track. So Diego Villarreal still holding on to 7th place after that incident, but still has about 11.8 second gap between him and the next position. Yeah,
but it looks as though that particular point in the race might have compromised him for the rest of it here. So for Villarreal, he might have to hope that the guys in front make mistakes so that he can reel him back in. Because look, he's only about 1.8 seconds behind the first of the stoppers, which is Lucende. So that's not going to bode well for where he's going to finish after this. As now on board with two heavy hitters in AMX, it's Peter Zuba and Gael Valero. Valero is in the slipstream, 2.5 tenths behind. In fact, make it less than a tenth now. Behind the Hungarian, trying to dive one onto the chicane. He makes a big boy dive and makes it stick.
An absolutely beautiful move right there by Gael Valero. Now, of course, going into the downhill section, right on the final couple of turns. We'll have to see. Gael Valero, we knew he's going to come out here trying to make it another win, but he still has about 5 seconds. So we're on lap 8 of 26 out here. Of course, the top 7 drivers still yet to take their mandatory pit stop. From the looks of it, we've seen these guys up front really wait until the last second, but now that there's going to be a battle between Peter Zuba and Gael Valero, I think it's really going to just come down to pacing when these guys take their pit stop.
Yes, and all the while then, if they start engaging each other even more, that will give Miranda even bigger breathing room up in front. Though, having said that, look at the amount of time that Valero has gained since overtaking Zuba. He's cut that gap to now under 5 seconds. So Miranda then has to start working, trying to maintain, consolidate, or try to increase the gap up in front, because he knows that full well if Valero gets anywhere near him again, he'll try to actually get that position away. We know how he works.
So right now, the biggest gain on the field is Gael Valero, already up 9 positions from where he started on the grid. Of course, Gael Valero doing excellent in qualifying as well. And here we can see from the sector times, just getting closer and closer to Victor Miranda. Peter Zuba not doing as good through sectors 1 and 2. But Gael Valero not looking back in his rearview mirror at all. He is all focused on what is ahead of him on the road, out here on track, already cutting that gap down a little bit. So he still has about 16 laps out here left to go. Plenty of time, 17 laps out here. Plenty of time for him to really close in on that gap. And like we said, depending on where these guys take their pit stops, I think Gael Valero may be waiting until the final lap or until he needs to refuel, whichever comes first.
Yep, certainly. And in the case of where we have seen before, quite often than not, it is fuel that actually becomes the most thirstiest commodity that these guys want to take it back in. Tires as a whole, it can last the whole race, but really the point of contention has to be that is in the tank. If you run out of those, that's it. You end up like Tim stayed in that first seat. You end up trying to coast it home afterwards.
And right there getting a little shaky as Diego Villarreal going to the outside, where we seen him have an incident earlier in that same spot, still going a little bit wide, leaving the door wide open for Jackson Asenje to take that position away from him. So Asenje, we know he's very fast, but unfortunately just heat number 1. He made sure to take that pit stop early on to try and get back out on the track, already fighting his way back through the grid. So as far as all of the drivers that have taken a pit stop so far, he is going to be leading that pack. But like we said, plenty of pace out on the track today. The number 93, currently in 7th place, but looking to hunt down every other driver one by one. And we know, no doubt, that he has it with him to do it. So we'll have to see Jackson Asenje if he's able to keep it up again. It's really going to come down to when the other guys in front of him pit. There's still about a 28, almost 29-second gap between him and the leader.
Now again, but every so often then, lap after lap, that delta either shrinks or it increases if it bases on how well Miranda actually can control the pace up in front. But by looks of it, it really has stabilized somewhat in terms of how they're going to fight here. But it looks as though it's going to be very close then between these guys who are pitted and those who are way up in front when they come for their pit stop.
So as the battle gets closer and closer between these guys in the middle of the pack as well as towards the rear, like I said, expect a lot of fighting to be going on in the rear of the pack as well. All these guys have taken their pit stops except for Diego Villarreal. So I think right now, I'm not sure if he's just going to say, all right, when is Diego going to pit? He knows if he pits, that's going to drop him all the way to the back. But at the same time, it'll give him plenty of clean air, where right now he's really compromising his line, trying to defend a little bit from the Delete the Esports drivers.
Yeah, but again, unnecessarily being brought into the fight is what's going to cost not only Villarreal time on track, but also De Carmo and Benitez if they get involved in this. And especially when Villarreal does that, oh, that's going to be very, very close. But it looks as though the Delete guys didn't lose that much time, and Villarreal can go scampering on his merry way.
And I was looking at Ralph Benitez's car through that turn. He was just absolutely doing it, putting the 4-wheel slide through there. So that's how you know when those guys get all 4 wheels sliding like that, they are definitely right on that razor thin edge of the limit of those tires. So great to see them pushing right now. Tim State still in the middle of the pack as well. currently in 6th place. He has not taken his mandatory pit stop, but he is kind of a little bit in no man's land out here. So like I said, I think once the other drivers start catching up to Tim, that may be when we see him hit the pits. But for right now, he's just focused on what the track has ahead of him. Still doing pretty decent on his lap times. I think we always bring up this question of, is it easier when you have other drivers around you, or is it easier when you have no one around you? But here we see the incident going on, the picture-in-picture with Pedro Dean coming around that right-hander and looking like he's just getting a little bit loose on that. So carried a bit too much speed and got sent off into the grass.
Oh, mercifully though, it was a lower speed corner compared to turn number 1 at Royal Anta. If you lose it there, you're going to meet the barriers after a long grass. Whereas the double right-handers on top of the hill, it's just much slower, and Dean just managed to recover that quite quickly without too much histrionics.
So here we now, we'll have to see where Tim State comes out of that on pit lane. Like we said, Diego Villarreal also yet to take his pit down towards the back. So we'll have to see if we get a battle going on between those two later on. But for right now, we're back up. Seeing Gaston Gulavi, where we got to see an AMX Zero earlier on. A couple incidents there that then later on he did end up winning heat number 2 for AMX Zero. So I know we'll have to see, of course, all of these races for AMX. We do have the KARA, the racing stewards for AMX out here making sure the drivers keep it fair, or if anyone feels like, hey, there might be some protestable incidents, they will also have some words to say about that. But like I always say, I'm glad that is their job and not mine. I'm glad I just get to see the tight racing going on out on track. But right now, we are nearly about halfway through this thing, lap number 13 of 26, and we have still your top 5 drivers yet to hit the pits.
Yep. We're waiting to see where they come out in between this pack, as now Pedro Dean recovering from that little off earlier onto the informal runway at the back straight on Road Atlanta. And if anyone saw my comment there earlier just now, that's what I meant by some illegal trading that happened back then in the 80s. But the planes that landed there were not jets, where they were just propeller planes that managed to fly all the way to South America and back to do those things back then. But anyway, small bit of trivia for those who want to know a bit more about what goes on in racing in the 80s.
And also you can see on screen right now the live timing. Go ahead and scan that QR code if you're watching this live, and you can follow along in the live timing. You get to see what we're seeing up here in the booth as well. And speaking of that, you get to see that so far Victor Miranda is still holding on to the fastest lap time. 121.57 is his quickest lap out here so far. So definitely we see Gael Valero a little bit behind him, still in 2nd place. That gap has been hovering around 5 seconds for quite a while. So again, this one really going to come down to the strategy of these two top drivers.
Definitely, but the gap has actually gravitated back towards Miranda, because earlier just now we saw how Valero was actually reeling in to about 4.7 seconds. Now it's back up to 4.9, and I think it does go back to that question that you posed, Kevin, of whether or not it's better to race with somebody or you're on track by yourself. It looks as though for both of these guys, they prefer to race by themselves but using each other as motivators. And for Miranda up in front, there's no better motivator than to just increase that gap behind. And the last lap just proved it. 2/10 faster, 21.7 for Miranda, or 21.9 for Valero. So if anything, it's Miranda who's gotten the pace at this point in this particular heat.
And also just keep in mind for everyone out there watching this, we do have a longer heat out here in heat number 1. Heat number 2 is only going to be 19 laps out there, a bit more of a sprint race. So make sure to stay tuned for that. See where these drivers go. Again, a reverse grid going out here from heat number 1 into heat number 2, as we always do, but it's still Gael Valero putting a little bit bigger of a gap over Peter Zuba as well. So Zuba been sitting in that 3rd place position for a while. Once Gael Valero was able to get past, he really just turned on the jets and started getting past him, as we see, a little bit of a blip right there from Valero, but still holding it on strong. Victor Miranda, now the gap, like we said, just under 5 seconds now to about 4.6 seconds. So I really think it's going to be, we see these drivers, some having better sectors than others. We'll have to see, Amir, exactly if Gael Valero, usually around the halfway mark, that's when we see him really start pushing it harder than he usually does the first half of the race.
Oh, certainly. And it looks as though he is pushing it right now, Kevin, because he's just gained about 0.6 of a second that previous lap. It looks as though it might have been a big mistake from Miranda. 21.8 versus 21.6. So, where is that gap gone for Miranda? Now it's going to be close to 4 seconds. It might have been either a back marker or a mistake. We can't see it right now because the first of the back markers happens to be Tim Stade. And we know Tim is very disciplined when it comes to actually going into these kind of situations. So I doubt that Tim actually might have caused Miranda to lose time. But whatever it is, 9/10 lost in this one lap alone.
Yeah, just as you said, that Tim Stade heading back to the pits. So we might have to see exactly if there was a little bit of squirreliness from Tim, exactly what happened. But nonetheless, this will be his second time into the pits this heat. Still, all of our top 5 drivers yet to hit the pits, as well as Diego Villarreal, currently sitting in 10th spot, has not hit the pits either. So again, we've seen in past seasons that even though these drivers may hit the pit lane, they have to stop in their own pit box for it to count. So although you can take a drive through the pits, you have to come to a complete stop in your box. Don't be trying to make any cheeky moves stopping in someone else's box. That will not count either. But here we see Peter Zuba trying to make up time as well. The gap is slowly increasing between him and Gael Valero. So still a great position though, as he is still sitting in that 3rd place on podium contention. So we'll have to see if this is going to be our top 3 towards the end of the race.
Yeah, certainly we can wait and see how that plays out. Though, in terms of pace, it looks as though Zuba, last lap at least, 3/10 off from Valero. So whatever gap that he gained at that point, he's lost it from that previous lap. Now he's trying to regain it here.
And I'm just looking at the people that have already hit the pits. So it's kind of a bit of a variety from some of them that have taken their pit stops. We've seen Tim Stade, 9.5 seconds. We've seen Pedro Dean, 5.9. Bruno De Carmo, 6.5. Jackson Senji, 6.3. So a little bit all over the place. But I think right now about an average pit stop time of about 6 seconds is going to be ideal for these drivers. Like I said, probably just a bit of a splash and dash, maybe just 1 liter of fuel, get back out on the track. So we'll have to see. As right now, Bruno De Carmo, all of the Delinta Esports drivers right here in a row, kind of working together a bit to try and make up ground on the drivers ahead of them. Of course, Jackson Senji leading that on earliest to hit the pits is now going to be potentially leading whenever the other drivers come out, but he still has almost a 30-second gap between him and Victor Miranda. So as the gaps increase towards the very front of the field, I think these guys know the longer they are in the middle of the pack, the more they have to work together. Otherwise, Victor Miranda, Gael Valero, Peter Zuba will be coming out of the pits right in front of them.
And for these guys, that's probably a bit of a nice consolation to have, because of course Miranda being their teammate up in front, they wouldn't really mind that one bit. Though, having said that, they'll love to actually get up to the front too. So for Resende, he plays an important role here. He will try to drag his teammates into play, but don't hold them up, otherwise they all will lose time consequently.
So great shot. I'm sure these guys can get some beautiful shots from these as well. I always love following all these team social medias, getting to post their own stuff as well. But speaking of social medias, like I said, guys, make sure you can head over to amxrace.com, get all the links to everything there. Hop in on our Discord, get to see what the drivers are chatting about, get to see what we're doing, get to see a little bit of behind the scenes sometimes going on there as well. So our Discord over there, as well as all of our social medias. We love to see you out here, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to watch some of our replays. I've seen this season with some of our mini endurance races, things are definitely getting shaken up there as well. So we got that going on, as well as our TCR doubleheader coming up tomorrow, as well as every other Sunday. So a lot of changes this season, but a lot going on nonetheless. But back to what's going on out here. We are in lap number 18. Vic Miranda still leading the pack, followed by Gael Valero and Peter Zuba.
Yep, but of course, as you can see, the stop counter on the side of their names there, the top 5 still have not made pit stops yet, from Miranda all the way to Dantas and those other nations in between, and so many Brazilians on board that one. But regardless of that, the leader of this particular group of cars that have pitted, and that is Resende. His pace actually compares to Miranda up in front is not that bad actually. If anything, he's matching it up to the 10th last time out. It's a 21.6 for Miranda and a 21.6 for Resende too. So again, it's ebbing and flowing, but it's bound to be very close once those top 5 actually go to the pits.
Yeah, definitely for all of the Delete the Esports drivers out there, if they're able to keep their pace consistently at those 121s, then I mean, absolutely, we're going to have a great battle once the top drivers start pitting. So still, we are 19 laps into this thing. The top 5 drivers have not pitted yet. Evandro Dantas, Gaston Kulabi may be on the bubble a bit more. Like we said, Jackson Asenje, Bruno De Carmo, those guys starting to make up a little bit of ground up on 4th and 5th place. So we might start seeing, like I said, where these guys are going to come out. Of course, the entire delta from hitting the pits is going to be a pretty substantial one. These guys having to slow down all the way to 45 miles an hour going into the pits. So a little bit slower pit lane compared to some other tracks, especially American tracks. We're used to seeing some out here 60 mile per hour pit lane. So a little bit more. Also about 100 kilometers compared to 72 kilometers an hour. So about that 30 kilometer difference, just depending on what track you're out here in the U.S. Another thing to keep in mind, we got to see the weather out there, still holding pretty steady out there, still pretty sunny, but the track temps are a little bit on the higher side today.
Yeah, the higher temperatures definitely will account for slower lap times compared to what they used to in qualifying just now. It was slightly colder, so the lap times were much faster. But having said that, fuel does become a factor here, so that's why lap times will suffer a bit, as opposed to having colder conditions and lighter fuel. As so Zuba with a bit of a moment there, fishtailing coming up through the S's. He's lost a bit of time there to Valero, so what was a 2.5 second gap is now 3 seconds, while Valero is also in turn lost 6/10, is now back up to about 5.2 seconds. So the midpoint of this race, or rather towards the end, looks like the Miranda's coming back strong.
And then we got a picture-in-picture replay of an incident from Ralph Benitez. So again, just going a little bit too hot into that right-hander. Ooh, going onto the grass. Luckily, able to get traction enough to get back onto the course. But that uphill section, that's been kind of dangerous for quite a few drivers already out here today, Amir.
Oh yeah, certainly. We did see, well, Edradine actually didn't lose it there. He lost it at the turn 7 and 8 double apex section. Double right-hander, sorry. But their first corner, very first victim we saw was Benitez. Luckily, he held it together and not go off into the grass and go off into the barriers on the grass there. Once you hit the grass, you're off forever. As now, Zuba, one of the first of the top 3 to pit.
And I see that also Gael Valero just setting the fastest lap time down with 1:21.51. So Gael Valero now starting to make up a little bit more pace. We'll have to see exactly, keep an eye on Peter Zuba, where he's going to come out. Oh, got a little bit of squirrely on the pit entry back there. It looked like Evandro Dantas, Jackson Senje. I'm curious what happened there, because Jackson Senje, this is now his 2nd time in the pits.
Yeah, I think he might have actually got a bit short on fuel, because definitely the tires is not going to be a factor. So we'll look at his pit stop times after this. But we saw just now Dantas actually whacked the barriers on the way into the pit lane. So we might or might not get a replay of that one. But from what I saw earlier, it was just a flash. It was literally the barrier lit up with smoke. I will hazard to guess he might have actually whacked the barriers on the way in.
Yeah, so we might just have to get a replay on what happened on that pit entry. But looking like Evandro Dantas having the longest pit stop time of about 10.2 seconds. So not sure if that pit entry caused just the slightest bit of damage. Not sure if his mechanics had to put a little bit of duct tape on that bumper to help get him back out there. But nonetheless, now Victor Miranda hitting the pits. So what we thought was going to happen earlier, Gael Valero definitely going to wait probably until the last possible moment to hit the pit lane. Now going to see if he can go for that overcut. Of course, Victor Miranda leading the race. Now we'll have to see is that incident picture-in-picture. Evandro Dantas definitely going into the pits, super hot, and ooh, does just hit the barrier right there on the outside. So unfortunately that set him back, having to stay in the pits just a few seconds longer.
Yep, and speaking of having to stay in the pits longer, that was a short stop from Resende, so might have actually been that second stop was cautionary for fuel. So he was the leader of the pack that stopped earlier. Now he's well behind. What he could have been actually where Bruno De Carmo is right now in P4, would you believe it? So, well, not sure what happened to Resende, but the upshot for him is that in the second heat he'll be starting up in front. But how he would have loved to actually been in the sharp end for this first heat.
We'll have to see, because right now we have our top two of Gael Valero and Gaston Culavi, the only drivers still yet to take their pit stop. So we'll have to catch back up with them, as now Gael Valero leading substantially, has a 17-second gap, which he is now hitting the pit. So we're going to have to keep an eye on Gael Valero to see where he comes out once he comes out of the pits. Now Gaston Culavi, we'll also have to see. I think he's going to try and have to hit the pits. He might not have much fuel left if he doesn't. So Gael Valero now into the pit lane. Gaston Culavi follows suit.
But where's Miranda? Miranda's going to come up in front or behind Valero. We need to go back to them right now. It looks as though Miranda just about gets the lead here.
So then we see Gael Valero now coming out of the pits, holding on to that, trying to not let Bruno De Carmo. Bruno De Carmo now coming up quick up the uphill section, right out of the pits through the S's. Will Bruno De Carmo have enough pace, able to get in front of Gael Valero? No, he gets it down to about a 1 second gap, however. So now the battle for P2 is going to ensue. As we see Tim State going off track. So Tim State being a back marker there. I think he's just doing a little bit of mirror driving. He knew those guys were coming up hot on him, but now the battle, here it is, folks. The final few laps. It's going to be a good one between Bruno De Carmo and Gael Valero. About a 4 second gap. Victor Miranda timing his pit stop just perfect. I'm not sure if Gael Valero may have made a mistake by waiting one extra lap to hit the pits.
Might highly doubt it there, because again, overcut or undercut will work in favor of somebody if the tire wear actually is up to it. Maybe that could be the case, but really not sure right now whether or not he pitted around the same time as Miranda would have actually made a difference. It's all dependent on his in-lap. As you can see, Tim State there, well, what a classic mistake at the S's. Just overstepped a bit and goes into the grass. Luckily though, out of harm's way.
Yeah, and you know, that was a nerve-wracking moment for the drivers coming up in first and second. Seeing Tim State getting a little bit squirrely, as well as now we see Bruno De Carmo, Peter Zuba about 2, almost 3 seconds behind third place. So Peter Zuba was looking like he might have a podium position early on. But like we said, we knew it was going to come down to these guys' pit strategy, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now on track. So with just a couple laps left in heat number 1, Victor Miranda leading in first place. Gael Valero trying to reel it in, but at the same time, make sure he doesn't push it too hard, because he has Bruno De Carmo nipping right on his heels.
Oh wow, this is such a good finish to the race, isn't it? And it's closer in front compared to what it was before. It was about 4 seconds. Now it's under 3 seconds, under 4 seconds here, coming into the close stages, but it won't be enough. Miranda has done enough in that first stint to just stay ahead of Valero. Now it's Valero's turn to be the one being hunted here in the final podium spots.
So he's still doing a great job keeping his composure, making sure Bruno De Carmo can't catch up that much. Right now about a second out, so not really in a position to get on the draft of Gael Valero. So Valero, knowing that, like I said, time and time again, we see him once he is locked in, looking forward, he's able to do his best work. And there we can see through sectors, every single sector, Gael Valero being faster than Victor Miranda as well. Bruno De Carmo is doing the same. So we'll have to see. With only about 2 laps left in this thing, we're on the penultimate lap. Victor Miranda going to have to make it absolutely perfect if he wants to hold on to the win out here in heat number 1.
Well, he's done the first part correctly, is to gap himself to Valero. Now it's just a matter of trying to finish off the job here. And looks as though traffic has actually played well here in his favor. So he catches the traffic at the right moment of the track and overtakes them quickly to avoid being held up. That has gone to his that's gone perfectly in his hands. And in this particular lap, look at that. First sector he might have lost a bit of time to Valero and De Carmo, but he is gaining it all back up here because he's just comfortable up in front, keeping it together. And this will be his first heat win of the day. We don't really count qualifying as heat wins, but we'll just say that in the race is proper. Yes, this will be the first one of the day, despite having top 5s all the way and 1 pole. He hasn't had a win yet. He'll break that duck today here.
And with that, heat number 2 coming up shortly. Going to be a quicker sprint race. Like I said, we got to see, especially the first week, some of these guys, whether or not they will have enough fuel. It's a little bit shorter of a race, but anything can happen out here. As the white flag flies, Victor Miranda leading the way, 3.5 seconds over Gael Valero. Gael Valero putting a gap between himself and Bruno De Carmo. I think this might be our top 3 as long as Peter Zuba is able to catch up, but there's still about 3-second gap. Not thinking that's going to happen. We have a battle right now going on for 4th place. Peter Zuba going to have to hold on to Ralph Benitez. Like we've seen the Brazilian drivers doing a great job during qualifying. Now trying to just get one more spot. Ralph Benitez has his work cut out for him if he wants to get one more spot before the checkered flag flies.
It's against Peter Zuba, of course. That's quite a tall order, isn't it? They might have to actually dive a do or die maneuver in the chicane here to make up a position. Otherwise, he'll just have to concede it and stay in that top 5, but he'll line up further up in front compared to the guys in front of him for heat number 2.
And just like that, so we only have a few turns left in this thing. Things are looking great for Victor Miranda. Now coming on to the last final couple of corners. He is going to be happy about this one. Finally coming out here with 6th place in qualifying, but going into heat number 1, it's not just about how fast you can be out on the track. Gael Valero so far having the fastest lap out here in heat number 1. But as we see, the checkered flag comes out. It is going to be Victor Miranda coming across in 1st place, Gael Valero in 2nd, and Bruno De Carmo coming in 3rd. A huge congratulations, all of the hard work being put in out here at Road Atlanta. Those are your top 3, all 3 of them deserving of the win, but it is Victor Miranda ultimately coming out on top.
Wow, we played the pit stop to perfection, and the in-lap and out-lap that he had was enough to seal the win up against a very tough opponent in the form of Gael Valero, with Bruno De Carmo, a fellow Brazilian, making it 1 and 3 here up in front. But make no mistake, Miranda just was faultless throughout the entire heat.
So we'll have to see, as now we have a couple drivers still out there. Diego Villarreal, Jackson Asenge. Jackson, unfortunately, hitting the pits 3 times. So, like we said, we got to see him hit the pits early on. A few laps ago, hit it again. But, you know, we'll have to see what he's going to do going into Heat 2. A little bit shorter of a race. We know he has good pace out here in the car. It just comes down to trying to make the littlest of mistakes out here. And I think that's really what came in play for our top drivers, is they came out here, they did what they had to do to get up onto the podium. Jackson Asenge was in contention for it early on, but we'll have to see as he learns from his mistakes of heat number 1 as we go into heat number 2. Our results coming up here very shortly. Amir, absolutely great race out here. Things got a little bit spread apart there about halfway through, and then the drivers started really turning it up.
Oh, definitely, when especially the pit stops came into play for those top 3. It was a matter of when you can time your stop and whether or not your in-lap and out-laps make the difference with you winning or just missing out. And for Victor Miranda, he did exactly just that. His in-lap was brilliant, his out-lap just as brilliant to prevent drivers from behind. Yes, from behind taking him. Yes, granted, Valero did gain a bit of time on him, but that matters for nothing if that second phase of that stint wasn't going well, and that's exactly what Miranda did. Just prevented Valero from having any sort of response to get at him for P1.
And looking out here as we are also getting ready for our drivers to hit the grid for our feature race. We'll have to catch up with them here very shortly. But like I said, looks like Evandro Dantas, Tim State now towards the front of the pack for heat number 2. Of course, these guys going to be out there putting it down. Tim State was doing a pretty good job out there as well. We have Jackson Asenge, who, although he had to hit the pits a few times now, is going to be towards the front of the pack as we are already underway. The cars going out here nearly 3 wide through here. So again, the battle of the races. Whoa, there Diego Villarreal going off track up through the S's. It's going to be Jackson Asenge leading the pack.
Yep, Asenge really got the best of starts there to get by Dantas. And that's crucial, of course, because a fellow Brazilian up in front with a Brazilian right behind him, it's going to be just playing rear gunner for the rest of the field to get by.
So now we can see a lot of these drivers just switching and swapping places. Tim State still doing a good job trying to battle it out in the middle of the pack. Ralph beneath is making up a few positions. Bruno De Carmo as well. Gael Valero, so already the guys towards the back. Diego Villarreal, unfortunately, with that slide off track, gets sent all the way down into 11th place. Kim State now starting to lose pace a little bit side by side, but is down 4 places. So these guys getting super aggressive right off the bat out here in lap number 1, 2 by 2 as we go on the back straight. We'll have to see as things get a little bit tighter on here who's going to be on the brakes later. We see the Delete the Esports guys. Ooh, right there looks like a move. Pedro Dean holding on to that spot, and a little bit of contact right there from Gael Valero getting into the back of Tim State.
And that will allow Bruno De Carmo to try and dive on the inside. That's not every day you get to say that, isn't it? Or see it happen. But Valero fights it hard for what he's worth. Coming through to number 1. It's all for naught because De Carmo slings by on the inside. Or does he? Because now Valero is going to have the inside line coming to the first of the S's. But De Carmo holds strong and gets the position away.
And just like that, so we've seen the guys going too wide through the S's. Of course, these guys being top level drivers, making sure to keep it nice and safe, but at the same time, both of them fighting back and forth for position, leaving plenty of room, however, for Jackson SNJ to get up 2 seconds into the lead. Gaston Kulavi now has his work cut out for him as he's trying to still look in his mirrors, make sure he doesn't leave the door open for Evandro Dantas, Pedro Dean as well, battling it out for that 3rd place position. We got to see, of course, out here, heat number 2, there is no mandatory pit stop, so it's going to come down to, do these drivers have enough fuel? We're going to have to wait and see. 19 laps out here for heat number 2 at Road Atlanta.
Wow, and Kulhavi got by Dantas already, so that he dispatched that Brazilian quickly. And speaking of dispatching Brazilians, there is a Brazilian battle between Dean and Dantas. Dean might have actually gotten it on the inside, but Dantas fights back here. Does he make it? No. In fact, Benitez is the one that also benefits from that particular scuffle. Gets out to P4, and now he sets his sights on the podium with Dean in it.
That was a beautiful move right there also by Ralph Benitez, just perfectly timing, slotting it in, maybe brushing a little bit of dirty air in front of Evandro Dantas. So now we'll have to see as Pedro Dean getting up onto podium contention. Of course, we'll have to see as he has a 1.3 second gap between 3rd and 2nd place. These guys battling it out, only going to be leaving room for Jackson SNJ to be walking away time and time again. We got to see last year Jackson SNJ, of course, being super quick already, holding down the fastest lap, 121.726, but the guys right behind him not going to be too far off that pace as they start getting in line. Like I said, the battle's definitely going to be one of the biggest things right here as we see Ralph Benitez just edging further and getting closer and closer to Pedro Dean. But will they have enough? We got to see last heat Pedro Dean falling down a little bit. Ralph Benitez has the pace, but definitely he's going to have to battle it out. Pedro Dean doing an amazing job is now looking to the inside. The number 6 of Ralph Benitez making the move a little bit later on the brakes and slotting in right into that 3rd place position.
Wow, we thought for a second that Benitez may have not had enough room to go on the inside of Dean, but he just slings it on the inside and makes the move stick. Though, to his detriment, he lost a bit of time here battling with Dean to Kulhavi. So, 1.5 seconds to gain. Let's see what he can do here now that he's in front of the rest of that gaggle.
And here we have, so now also a battle going on for P8. We have Peter Zuba trying to fend off Victor Miranda. Of course, the reverse grid definitely puts these drivers, tests them to their limit. We have Gael Valero able to slot up a few positions already. And now Evandro Dantas trying to hold off Bruno De Carmo. So once Dantas got that, now going a little bit wide. Like I said, we see all the drivers just dipping in. Ooh, right there in the back, we see a spin going on as well. So definitely that uphill section through the S's has taken its fair share of drivers out here today.
And it's Villarreal once again. He didn't have the best of run-ins in that corner in the first heat. Second heat, he gets caught up by it as well. So he is going to be right at the back with Tim State. But meanwhile, Valero, though, makes the move with the slipstream on Dantas. Now he's going to try one on De Carmo here on the inside. Remember, both of these guys were battling that first heat. And it is this time, however, the battle belonging to the Frenchman.
Right there too, we've seen a beautiful move. Gael Valero just shutting the door on Bruno De Carmo. So Bruno De Carmo right now, I'm not sure if there's a little bit of damage to these guys' cars, but you're going to have to get a look on the front of that. But right now, Bruno De Carmo holding great pace. Gael Valero having to defend for his life. And there we can see the picture-in-picture replay That looks like the same position in heat number 1 that Diego Villarreal ended up getting spun out, but this time, just bouncing off of that right-hand barrier, the front, the back, spinning it around. We'll have to see if Diego Villarreal is going to have to come in to the pits to get that repaired.
Looks as though he didn't. For him, I think in his eyes, there might have been some light contact, even though it was quite substantial. But he is still getting away. He got away with that one, and he's still going along just inside the top 10.
So now the battle's still going on out here. We have for P2, Ralph Benitez has the pace on Gaston Coulavi from what we've seen earlier on today. Now looking to make the move stick. Now going side by side. Ralph Benitez so far in the lead, side by side. Who's going to get on the brakes later and hold on to this? It does look like that is going to be Ralph Benitez slotting in front. So one by one, Ralph Benitez been making up positions. And we'll have to see as now the number 9 of Coulavi slots into 3rd place. But he has Pedro Dean right on his heels as well, only about 4/10 behind him. So we'll have to see as they come into the home stretch. The draft being super strong out here today. And we see an incident up there. Picture, Tim State getting a little bit squirrely going through the S's and unfortunately locking up the brakes, going right into the gravel trap on the outside. Unfortunate move right there for Tim State. Able to keep it out of the barriers luckily and get back out onto the track.
Yeah, I think that might have happened slightly earlier before this big battle erupted. And unfortunately, our timing tower has actually gotten a bit of fritz here. So we can only relay you what's happening right now through live timing, which is still being led by Resende in front of Benitez and Coulavi. That's your top 3. Dean is 4th. We're looking at him right now. There it is. The timing screen counts back on. Thank God for that. It was just a slight intermission on that particular instance. Look at how close it is. Coulavi, Dean, Valero, and the Carmo for good measure.
So just like that, things are definitely getting close for that 3rd place position. We'll have to see. I think the mindset definitely coming in here too. These guys know, hey, we don't have to hit the pit stops. We don't have to really worry about anything going on. We just have to get out there, put your foot through the floor, and try to get up onto the podium. And now, Gael Valero doing a great job so far as well. Already up 5 positions from where he was. Ralph Benitez, the other driver, was up 5 positions into 2nd place. So, of course, these guys battling it out in heat number 1. We'll have to see where they land as we are now lap 7 of 19. Jackson Asenge still leading the pack. A 3-second gap between him and Ralph Benitez in 2nd. And Gaston Coulavi catching up to Ralph Benitez. So the battle for 2nd ensues as we see what happened with Peter Zuba earlier on. Getting a little bit squirrely, locking up just slightly. Like we said, going into that uphill section. We got the Porsche lawnmowers out here today, folks.
And certainly, the lawn mowing was just part of his resume because he did not go as into landscaping because he didn't whack the barriers into turn number 1. So he got away with it, albeit losing time and position to now drop the P9.
So I didn't expect this to be, I knew there was going to be battles going on. I didn't expect it to be this close for this long. Like we said, of course, this season, AMX5, we went last season from 2 sprint races now to a little bit longer with the mandatory pit stop in heat number 1 and back to a regular sprint race in heat number 2. But here we see Gael Valero looking to make the move over the number 48 of Pedro Dean. He does. He gets to the inside of him on the brake just a little bit later, holding that momentum. Pedro Dean backing off just a little bit, and Bruno De Carmo also having to back off, getting checked up a little bit. But now Bruno De Carmo looking to make the move on the inside of Pedro Dean, and he does. He will make it stick. These guys side by side. Pedro Dean almost going off into the grass there, but having to concede that position of Bruno De Carmo.
Yeah, looks as though that Dean actually just played a little bit cautious in giving the position away. But unfortunately, he lost 2 in one fell swoop in one sector there. So Valero and De Carmo might be having that one. Dean, conversely, might be a bit disappointed that he just gave too much space and lost on momentum.
And that's always one of the hardest decisions to make. You want to be pushing it as hard as you can, but you know if he would have pushed it a little bit harder, there would have been a very good chance that he would have ended up in an incident right there. But here we see Gaston Coulavi trying to defend off Gael Valero. Gael Valero so far has been outpacing Coulavi. Valero been doing an excellent job. We've seen in heat number 1 and now goes for the move to the inside over the number 9 of Coulavi. Will he have enough? He's leaving plenty of space. Definitely trying to take the more defensive line, and he does stick it. Gael Valero back up onto the podium into 3rd place.
Yep. And he's in front of Kulhavi as well. Remember Kulhavi involved in that second heat kerfuffle back at Lime Rock Park. Let's hope this doesn't end up the same thing, because he is against one of those fast guys on iRacing. Wouldn't want to get on his backside here. Coming up to start yet another lap. Lap 9 out of 19. So 11 laps to go after this. A pit stop may come in handy as well for refueling, but highly doubted that they will do it in such a short span of time compared to the first heat.
Like we've seen in heat number 1, once we hit that halfway marker, something just switches inside these drivers' heads that they start pushing it a little bit more. Of course, it's still a little bit hotter out here on track today. Temps have very much seen a little bit on the warmer side all day long, but they are only increasing just slightly. So tire degradation not going to be as much of an issue as we've seen in heat number 1. But here we go. Bruno De Carmo looking to make the move over Gaston Kulhavi side by side, getting very, very close to each other. But the number 5 of Bruno De Carmo still having his work cut out for him. Gaston Kulhavi there, getting a little bit slippery. That the rear end just barely sliding out, letting Bruno De Carmo get up into 4th place.
Yep, one slight mistake from any one of these guys up in front is enough to get by here. And it looks as though this might just be one or two more positions swapping coming into the S's. De Carmo's on the inside, Dean on the outside, and behind him is Kulhavi. So Kulhavi just had to concede there to a fast charging couple of Brazilians. And now De Carmo can set his sights on yet another podium spot here, albeit it's against a very tough opponent, 1.9 seconds ahead.
So we know De Carmo has the pace in him now that he might be getting a little bit of clean air, that he was able to get past those 2 drivers. Definitely has his sights locked in on Gael Valero, but like we've seen earlier on, Gael Valero is no slouch out here at all. That's going to be a tough feat for him. So we'll have to see. I think at this point, it's going to be up to, again, who makes the least amount of mistakes. We've seen that all day long. The slightest mistake will put you down in another position. But Jackson Desenge still out here, been leading the race all heat long. Now about a 2.7 gap between himself and his teammate Ralph Benitez, the 2 Brazilian drivers leading it. Gael Valero only 1.5 seconds behind Ralph Benitez. So these 2 definitely going to try and have to work together what they can, although there's still a bit of a gap as we see the menacing look of the one Apex Racing driver out there in 3rd place, trying to get back up on here. So far has a pretty good chance at being on the pretty good chance at being up on the podium, but wants to be sitting on the top step.
Yeah, certainly, but he's got about what, 1.3 seconds and about 9 laps to go after this to reel in to the back of the Brazilian. And of course, one of those guys who really think about trying to go all the way. No stopping is the way to go. But again, you might want to try to throw a curveball by coming to the pits and just force everybody to show their hand.
So here we go, as now things have eased out a little bit of a gap between our top 4 drivers, but now we also see Pedro Dean still trying to hold it on to Bruno De Carmo there in the background, Victor Miranda. So I think we're going to have a battle going on for 4th place here pretty soon. Gael Valero still ever so closely inching it up to Ralph Benitez, but there we see Sector 2, Benitez having a little bit faster time. Bruno De Carmo starting to fall down just the slightest. Like we said, Bruno De Carmo also having to keep an eye out in his mirrors for those drivers behind him. I think that's a position that you don't always want to be in. Of course, you know you have great pace in you, but if you're not watching that rear view mirror, Pedro Dean might just come in right there and try to take that position back.
Yeah, but let's see if they could actually get back on the hill. You can see a gaggle of cars very close right now. De Carmo, Dean, Miranda, and Kulhavi. So that's quite an interesting battle pack being formed at this particular point. And the real question is whether or not fuel's going to be enough. We'll wait and see. But it's shorter compared to that first heat. I don't think fuel may be a consideration, but it'll be quite surprising if it is.
And we can see, of course, just keep in mind that Pedro Dean was the 3rd fastest in qualifying. So really, we can see him getting faster and faster compared to some of these other drivers. But definitely early on in this race, there was a few moments where he tried to avoid contact with the other drivers, and that just slowed him down, got off his line. Now he's looking a lot more comfortable. But I'm I'm not sure if it's a little too late, as now he has the number 17 of Victor Miranda right behind him, nipping on his heels once again. Pedro Dean caught in between the two drivers, between all of that right there. So we'll have to see exactly what happens. And now looking like a bit of issues going on a little bit, but we're back into the race now. Following Victor Miranda, we'll have to see exactly what these drivers can do. Amir, right now we're just having to go pretty much based off the timing screen. Looks like a little bit of things have frozen up. So right now I can see we're on to the BenQ, the red car of Peter Zuba. Peter Zuba having a pretty good pace early on, but has since fallen down in the rankings.
It looks as though I think even the timing screen have stopped. So really, we're not sure what's happening on track right now. Something is not being injected at this point.
So anyways, a little bit of technical issues right now, but still riding along. We have a few laps left in this thing. As we can see, timing screen got paused just a little bit from where we were, but as we can see, Jackson Asenge looked like he had a pretty good lead. Of course, his teammate Ralph Benitez and Guy Alvalero. Guy Alvalero was just a little bit behind them. So now we're going to have to keep an eye out on these cars. Right here in the middle of the pack, Amir, we'll have to see. The big one was going to be heat number 1. That was really the one, double the points in heat number 1 compared to qualifying and heat number 2. So with heat number 1 in the books, these guys, I wouldn't say not too worried about where they finish in heat number 2, but a little bit of a relief for the guys that finished in the top 3 in the previous heat.
And certainly because of the points stakes, yeah, they'll be happy to see that heat number 2, the points are still there, but it won't become as paramount as compared to when they're doing heat number 1. So they'll breathe a sigh of relief there. Though again, this kind of disconnection only happens when iRacing releases a new patch and there are some hot fixes that need to be done. This might just be one of those set cases, though. As far as I read, I don't think there was any updates being rolled out.
Yeah, I know I had some issues last weekend too, of course. I got to participate in the Indy 6 Hour last weekend and definitely was victim of some of those iRacing issues. Just randomly getting booted from iRacing servers, things freezing up. So heard a lot of other drivers around in the community having similar issues. So with so many events going on right now, it is not the best time. But unfortunately, that is just part of the territory when you are sim racing versus racing in real life. But speaking of other big things going on, right now we also do have the Petit Le Mans going on in iRacing, of course, coming up October 18th through 19th. So we'll have to see how many of these drivers, like I said, summer and fall seem to be some of the biggest times in all of sim racing. We got to see previously with the ESL Sim Racing World Championship, where of course we got to see Team Redline on top of that one. So a lot of great drivers out here. Team Redline unfortunately not out here today, but we do have a lot of great top level drivers. Of course, some real life level drivers as well that we get to see from time to time. Amir, I mean, definitely we're just gonna have to wait to see when the timing screen comes back up, but it does look like it was Jackson Asenge the one looking to win heat number 2.
Yep, as we're actually gonna come back in now. I think we might have got the live pictures back. No, live pictures are not, but the live timing is, and Resende, all these guys have not pitted, so that means that definitely is not on their minds. But Valero is ahead by about 3 seconds now, ahead of Valero.
Let's just see exactly where these guys come out. But Jackson is still now started, was on lap 15 right there. So exactly where these drivers all pop back. The camera is now back on Jackson Asenge. About a 3.9 second, almost 4 seconds in front of Guy Alvalero. Ralph Benitez holding on to 3rd place as well. So through all that, we'll have to see where these drivers, just a few laps left in this one, heat number 2, where things are going. Again, may have to catch up with some of these drivers later on to see exactly how things are going through their heads. But Guy Alvalero slotting up to 2nd place now, still having to battle it off with Ralph Benitez.
Well, that's gonna be a tough one, isn't it? We know Valero, he can be quite feisty when it comes to his defense, but normally it's hot but fair, whereas Benitez is like putting together an unstoppable force and an immovable object. So 2 things that come together here will create some sparks flying. Though I would predict this to be a very hard battle, but ultimately very fair battle between the both of them. So let's see what Benitez can do here in the final 3 laps.
And of course, just a quick reminder for everyone that wants to get out there involved, win them some potential prize money, as well as get in the running for that next level racing gear. You can head over to amxrace.com anytime. We got to see some great races earlier on. AMX Zero, a perfect entry level place out there. I know from time to time, I love hanging out with these guys, getting involved in some of those races when I'm not out in the booth. It is a great time, no matter your skill level, whether you're an AMX veteran, iRacing veteran, ACC, no matter what you have been used to. It is a great place to come in, jump in, have some fun. It is all base content, free to everyone. Make sure to check that out again every single Saturday this season. But right now, back here at AMX5, we are lap 16 of 19. There's still a little bit of time. The gap is starting to grow just slightly. We'll have to see Ralph Benitez. We've seen the track temps earlier on being a little bit on the warmer side. I'm not sure if that tire degradation at this point in the race is starting to be a factor for some of these drivers. Of course, like we said, Jackson SNJ leading the race all heat long, looking like he may be coming away on that top spot out here in heat number 2.
Yeah, definitely a good consolation after what has been quite a mixed day for Jackson Resende. This would be a great way to just finish it all off and just put a bow on it, isn't it, of how that things have been. And it's a commanding victory too, unless of course there's a sting in the tail, whether or not we're going to get a bit of a left field moment where the drivers come to the pits in the final few laps.
So we'll have to just see. Man, right now, I mean, I'm not sure if Jackson SNJ is getting a bit bored out there leading the whole race, or if he just has a sigh of relief. Of course, in heat number 1, didn't have the best results, had to hit the pits 3 different times, but since came back out here, learned a lot from heat number 1, going into heat number 2, used everything to get up into first place early on. Right now, the battle between Bruno De Carmo, Victor Miranda, not sure how much they're going to be battling it out. These two teammates right here, we've seen them working together a lot, no matter what the situation is. I think it may come down to the final lap if Victor Miranda is going to be able to catch up to Bruno De Carmo. Of course, the draft out here, little bit of snaking up through the back stretch, but nonetheless, they want to make sure they can extend that gap between themselves and Pedro Dean.
Well, because Valero has actually tried to break the toe then to Benitez. That's what we saw, just a peek of it, while we were actually watching the two Delinte cars together. So De Carmo and Miranda might be in their own little battle, where whether or not Papyro is going to be applied, it's another thing altogether. But for the battle of the final 2 positions on the rostrum, there it is. Valero and Benitez, 0.5 of a second separating between the both of them. It looks as though Benitez might just be able to try a couple more instances of a maneuver, and that's it, because we're on the penultimate lap now.
And I think at this point, it's really going to be putting that pressure on Gael Valero. So Gael was trying to close the gap between himself and Jackson Asenge, but now with just about a lap and a half left out here, I think he's really just having to focus on playing extremely defensively. We know Ralph Benitez is in the perfect spot once he gets on that straightaway to really try and make a move, dive to the inside. And I think that's kind of what it's going to be the strategy out here is now. We head out onto the back straight. Ralph Benitez right on the rear bumper, trying to hold on. Who is going to get the better run out of here, Amir? Let's see, as now peeking to the outside. He makes the move. Is it going to stick?
Oh, they're going to go side by side here, coming up to the end of this straight here into the chicane. You can see Benitez is ahead, but Valero has the inside line and a better momentum through. That is enough to actually just stall Benitez. And Benitez, though, didn't get the best of exits. He's now a second behind. As meanwhile, the other two Delinte cars are in their own little battle.
And so just like that, trying to make the move stick around the outside. But like we said, Gael Valero, an absolute veteran, holding on to that P2 position. As the white flag comes out, Jackson Asenge now has over a 4-second gap over all the other drivers. It is looking very promising for Jackson out here in heat number 2, as we still see the battle going on between Victor Miranda, Bruno De Carmo. The two teammates, they each want to hold on to that spot. They each want to get that P4 position. But the biggest thing for them is that they know how their last heat went. They know they want to just keep it safe, keep it out of the wall. So a lot of friendly competition is now. We see Pedro Deem coming in the background, still about a 2.5, almost 2.5 second gap between them now, about 2.2 seconds. So definitely this may be where our running order stays. Only nearly a second gap between Gael Valero and Ralph Benitez. who is going to come across. I think this may very well be positions, Amir.
Let's see what's going to happen here, because coming up to the chicane now, Valero didn't actually break the toe as he did last time against Benitez, while Miranda's doing the exact opposite of it by trying to break the toe against the Carmo. But coming up to the chicane now, they can see the Carmo on the inside.
And a great move right there, but the number 17 of Miranda holding on to it. And ooh, a little bit of contact right there between the two teammates, not wanting to end up into the wall off the side. But just like that, Jackson Asenge, Gael Valero, Ralph Benitez, your top three, as Victor Miranda, Bruno De Carmo come across. There we see Pedro Dean coming across in style, sliding it out across the checkered flag. Gaston Kulavi now making his way. Unfortunately, Peter Zuba coming down, falling down position, finishing in P8. And now we have the last few drivers of Dantas State. Diego Villarreal, unfortunately, out of this race.
Yeah, for Villarreal, I think it might have been one contact too many. It was a hefty impact onto the right-hand side of the car. And he did that in 2 consecutive heats, hitting it at the same spot as well. So I think it was just understandable that maybe just wasn't his night tonight.
And here we see, so a little bit of damage there on the rear end of Tim State, now still making it across the checkered flag. So just a couple turns now going downhill into the final turn. So Tim State finishing it now, the number 333. We've seen a lot of people out here. Definitely a fan favorite. We love every time we see all of our drivers out here coming in, week out. Some of them, unfortunately, not able to make it out here with us today, but are here with us in spirit nonetheless. But the big thing coming on that, of course, the biggest congratulations to Jackson Asenge out here for heat number 2. Of course, didn't have the best heat number 1. Able to make it up, have his redemption arc in heat number 2, and walk away on that top step of the podium. So your Ben Q session winner, of course, Jackson Asenge. In second place, we got Gael Valero, who also set the fastest lap. Third place, Ralph Benitez. In fourth, we have Victor Miranda. Fifth place, Bruno De Carmo. Sixth place, Pedro Dean. In seventh, we have Gaston Kulavi. Eighth, Peter Zuba. Ninth, Evandro Dantas. 10th, Tim State. And Diego Villarreal rounding it out into 11th place.
Well, doing the Galva Bueno impression, Jackson Resende do Brazil with a commanding victory up in front, 4.3 seconds in front of Valero. Benitez 4.8 seconds behind, another 5 tenths behind Valero. But again, the Brazilians doing really well here. 4 of them in the top 5. That will be a very happy day for everyone involved in the great nation of Brazil.
Absolutely, putting it down, and like we've seen, the dominance from all the Brazilian drivers out here, of course, shutting out the field, a huge mid-pack of them. Heats number 1 and number 2, great driving all throughout, but again, we'll have to wait and see from our overall results after that. Of course, with Heat 1 weighing in a little bit more, the points are doubled from qualifying and Heat number 2, so we'll have to see exactly where these drivers come out at the end of the day. But nonetheless, another day of AMX 5. These drivers putting on an absolute great show. And just a quick preview of what's coming up for tomorrow. We have our AMX 10 doubleheader, our AMX 10 of our CR World Tour coming on, where we're going to be heading it back over to Italy. We're going to be heading to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, of course known as Imola, as well as we're going to be heading over to Mugello as well. So both of those tracks are going to be absolutely great time in the TCR. Like we said, we got to see last time in the TCR vehicles, the tracks were a little bit shorter, a little bit of chaos. I mean, well, rather quite a bit of chaos going on there. So we'll have to see exactly what that is, a preview going on for tomorrow. But Amir, as always, what was your highlight of the AMX 5 race today?
Ooh. I think it's definitely the finish to that first heat. That was definitely quite close between Miranda and Valero because of the pit strategies. But ultimately, I think, again, the pit stops made the difference here today because there was not much in terms of overtaking. Quite a few places, yes, but I think Miranda's strategy to just go in front ahead of Valero was definitely my pick of the bunch today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think today we could probably have a pretty big crash compilation just from what we had going on between all the drivers. I mean, really going through the S's, that seemed to really be the one section that gave most of the drivers a hard time out here today. Of course, we got to see earlier on in the day the AMX Zero race as well at Lime Rock Park. Once they hit up through that first set of chicanes, those guys just hitting the curbing and unsettling the cars. So two prominent sections from each race today that really giving some of these drivers a bit of trouble. But while we're here, we're still waiting on the official results from today's race out here in AMX5. Like we said, you guys, if you want to get in on the action, you can head over to amxrace.com. Sign up there anytime. On days like today, AMX Zero, a perfect place to get started if you just want to get a feel for it. Or if you're a bit higher I rating and you want to win some big prizes, we have AMX5, AMX10, AMX15, tons of classes out here this season. Amir, well, what are you hoping to look forward to that we can get, like we said, tomorrow going on, as well as looks like the results are going to be coming in here shortly. So we'll hold up on that as we wait for our results to come in.
I think, yeah, the results are still being worked on right now. But yeah, tomorrow looking forward to Mugello and Imola. Imola is going to be a bit weird because of that. Again, it's a single lane circuit. Not often you get guys side by side. Maybe it's just coming up to Tamburello, but Mugello is going to be the pick of the bunch. That entire race is just going to be full of side by side action because of how flowing the track is. And here's the results.
So there we go. Your AMX5 winner of the day, Gael Valero with 48.5 points. Coming in second place, we got Victor Miranda with 35 points. And in third place, Bruno De Carmo with 30 points. So those are your top three, followed by Jackson Asenge in fourth, Ralph Benitez in fifth, Pedro Dean in sixth, Peter Zuba seventh, Gaston Culavi in eighth, Ivandro Dantas and Diego Villarreal will tie it for that ninth place position. So a big congratulations to all of the drivers out here. Of course, once again, Gael Valero, one of the most consistent drivers, putting it down, looking to get another championship in the books this season. But nonetheless, he has some of the Delinte Esports drivers close on his heel in the chase. We're only a few weeks into this thing, folks. We are going to be out here 10 race weekends altogether. There's still plenty of time for that top of the grid to shift. Like I said, if you want to be caught up on all of the standings, the schedule, everything, we have it posted. AMXrace.com. We will keep everyone up to date on there, as well as if you want to chat from time to time, get involved. Make sure to head over to our AMX Discord. A lot going on there as well. But for that, Amir, I mean, I think that is pretty much going to do it for today's races.
Yeah, certainly. It was a mixed bag, but overall, I think we got really a good meal's worth of racing here today.
Absolutely. So we're going to be catching up with you guys again. Like I said, make sure to tune in live tomorrow on our Twitch and YouTube. We will be back out here, AMX 10, our TCR World Tour. Signing out for AMX Season 6. We are going to be back out here. I am Kevin alongside Amir. We will see you all next time.